Chapter 1259. Sensing the movement on Chu Luyue's side, both of them looked over. Ah Cheong looked at her worriedly. Chu Luyue gave it a reassuring look. "Don't worry, I'm fine." As she said that, she rubbed her temples. "That's right, why didn't I think of it before?" When she was in her teens, she had already made a contract with her own magical beast. At that time, Dumpling was only a 9-colored heavenly pheasant, but at that time, it was already considered one of the most powerful magical beasts in the entire Tianling dynasty. After she successfully made the contract, her father even held a palace banquet to celebrate. From then on, Dumpling had been following her. And coming to the Divine Ruins world was something that happened later. Logically speaking, Dumpling should have come with her at that time. But after so long, Dumpling had never mentioned this. "Dumpling." Chu Luyue called out in her heart, but there was no response. Only then did she remember that Dumpling had stayed at Thousand Wine Mountain and was not by her side now. She frowned. It seemed that she would have to wait a month before she could clarify this matter. She sat in a daze for a while before lying down again. This time, she finally fell asleep in a daze. While Chu Luyue spent the night in the Beast Park with complicated feelings, the people outside were also not calm. Thousand Wine Mountain. On the top of the mountain, beside the spring, there were a few figures standing. Standing in the middle was Elder Bo Yen, beside him were Elder Ouyang and Shang Yusin. "Is this what you've done?" Elder Bo Yen looked around and asked faintly. Even though he had heard them talk about it before, when he saw this scene, he could not help but feel angry. These people really knew how to cause trouble. The punishment from before was really too light. Cough. Elder Ouyang coughed. "Actually, it's mainly the surrounding trees and rocks that were destroyed, but there's no problem with the spring," Elder Bo Yen sneered. "If there was a problem with the spring, do you think I would still be here talking to you about this?" Elder Ouyang shut his mouth awkwardly. Shang Yusin was still relatively relaxed. Bo Yen, since this has already happened, there's no point in talking about it anymore, right? What's more, those who should be punished have already been punished. None of us escaped punishment, right? Why don't we start right away and restore this place as soon as possible? Elder Bo Yen gave him a warning look. There will be no next time. Although the 10,000 Wine Mountain had been sealed, it could only be repaired at night. That was why they had waited until now to come. As he spoke, Elder Bo Yen walked to the side of the spring and carefully examined it. The mouth of the spring, which gurgled during the day, became very calm at night. Under the calm surface of the water, streaks of silver tian lay gathered and intertwined with each other. "I already said that there's nothing wrong with the spring." Shang Yusin laughed. "You don't trust me and Ouyang." "At that time, we were very careful." Elder Bo Yen looked away. "This spring has great implications. It's best to be cautious." After all, they had caused such a huge commotion, so of course he would be worried. Elder Ouyang nodded in agreement. Bo Yen is right. For this thing, our entire academy has put in a lot of effort. We don't dare to have any problems. Calculating the time, it seems that it's almost time, right? Elder Bo Yen shook his head. It was originally going to end, but some time ago, Chiyu came and caused a ruckus, causing the number of Tianlei in here to decrease. The time was delayed again. Fortunately, he didn't take much away at that time. After some time, it will be able to recover. Elder Ouyang sighed. In the end, this Chu Yu really knows how to cause trouble. Fortunately, you threw him into the Beast Park this time. You have to polish his character properly. Otherwise, what would happen if he was always so bold and arrogant? Elder Bo Yen nodded. I think so too. Chuyu had a precious treasure in his hands, so it was inevitable that he would attract the envy and jealousy of many people. If he didn't improve his strength as soon as possible, no one knew what would happen in the future. After all, it was impossible for any so-called backer to protect him from afar all the time. In the end, becoming stronger was the most important thing. I wonder how that kid is doing in the Beast Park now. As Elder Ouyang spoke, he glanced in the direction of the Beast Park. He probably won't be able to sleep on the first night, right? Elder Bo Yen laughed. He has a red-tailed phoenix. Don't worry too much. If he didn't know about this contracted divine beast, he wouldn't have dared to put Chuyu in the Beast Park for a month. Suddenly, there seemed to be a sound coming from the spring. Elder Bo Yen immediately lowered his head to look, but only saw a shallow ripple spreading from within. He stared for a while and only retracted his gaze after confirming that there was nothing unusual. Let's begin. The three of them separated and began to repair the area they were in charge of. In the spring, several tianlei flickered quietly. A streak of red flashed across the ink-like water. A night passed in the blink of an eye. When Chu Luyue woke up, the sky was already bright. Ah Cheong was guarding outside the cave, but the cub wasn't there. It seemed to have gone out. Hearing the movement, Ah Cheong turned around. Chu Luyue got up and walked outside. She stretched her muscles and bones, and heard the sound of bones cracking. She looked forward with a smile on her lips. This place is still the same as before. It's a good place to cultivate. Ah Cheong looked at her curiously, as if she was asking for her opinion. Chu Luyue smiled. Ah Cheong, I'm going into seclusion from today onwards. I'll have to trouble you to guard me. Ah Cheong nodded. Chu Luyue felt much more at ease. She turned around and returned to the cave. Yes, she was preparing to break through to the peak of the 7th level. Ever since she recovered her Tianjing Yuan Meridian, her cultivation speed had increased by a lot. After coming to Lingshao College, the rich force of heaven and earth was like adding wings to a tiger. In addition, she had experienced all these before. Hence, even if there was no one to guide her, she could still break through smoothly. Now, she only needed a relatively quiet and stable environment. Some of the magical beasts in the Beast Park were reared in the past, while some were brought back by the elders and students from outside. The number of divine beasts was not small. If Chu Luyue was alone, she would definitely not choose to break through at this time and place. But now that Ah Cheong was here, she could be more at ease. These divine beasts were afraid of each other. Usually, they wouldn't invade each other and lived in harmony. She basically wouldn't have any problems cultivating in Ah Cheong's cave. She sat cross-legged, her shoulders drooping naturally, and her hands on her knees. Then, she closed her eyes and started to absorb the force of heaven and earth around her quickly. Streaks of energy rushed into her body. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1260. It was peaceful in the school. Elder Bo Yen kept the incident on 10,000 Wine Mountain under wraps. Other than the few of them, no one else knew about it. Everything was the same as usual. Even the news of Chu Luyue being locked up in the Beast Park was kept under wraps by Elder Bo Yen. On one hand, the elders in charge of patrolling knew that those who were sent there must have done something. The less they said, the less mistakes they would make. On the other hand, they were not people who liked to gossip. They knew that Bo Yen and Wanjing did not want this incident to spread, so they kept quiet. Hence, even if Chu Luyue did not appear in front of everyone, no one suspected anything. In everyone's eyes, she was busy cultivating with Rongxiu. It was normal for her to stay in Jiuheng Mountain. Days like this passed for several days in a row. Fifth brother, I heard that the mystic teachers and elders are having a class together in the afternoon. On one of the mountain peaks, Luo Shishir and Zhuoxing had finished cultivating. They wanted to visit Luo Yanlin since they had not seen him for a long time. Unfortunately, Luo Yanlin was not around, so they went to look for Luo Yanming. Luo Shishir asked if she poured tea for the other two. A smile appeared on Luo Yanming's face as she nodded. That's right. Master said that we have always been sparring with each other. After a long time, we already know each other's styles. It's boring, so we discussed with the other elders to have a class together. This matter was actually not uncommon in the Spirit Firmament Academy. Not only mystic teachers, but martial artists and celestial physician also had such activities from time to time. To put it nicely, it was a friendly exchange. To put it bluntly, it was a battle between each other. Most of the students in the school were favored by the heavens. They had some pride in their bones and were very competitive. Of course, the elders also had a similar desire to win. When the elders had a class together, they would often personally spar with each other and demonstrate to the students. This way, the students could learn a lot and increase their strength through a certain amount of competition. Cultivation, in the end, was for the sake of becoming stronger, for the sake of establishing an invincible position in battle. There were many benefits to this, so the elders and students were happy to do so. Who are the elders that have come? Luo Shishir asked curiously. Luo Yanming thought for a moment. Other than our master, there are 3 other elders. Oh, 7th madam is here too. Does that mean 4th brother will be there too? Yes. In fact, there were many people who wanted to learn from 4th brother. Luo Yanming said with envy and admiration. Luo Yanlin had always been in the top 10 on the Mystic Cultivator ranking and was considered an absolute leader among the students. There were countless people who wanted to challenge him. After all, it was possible to learn more and faster by fighting with a powerhouse than by building a car behind closed doors. I wonder when I'll be able to catch up to 4th brother. Luo Yanlin said with some emotion. Luo Shishir comforted him. 5th brother's talent is outstanding. He will definitely be as outstanding as 4th brother in the future. Luo Yanlin shook his head. A few years ago, when 4th brother first entered the academy, he was about the same age as me. Within a month of coming to the academy, 4th brother had already made it onto the Azure Sky Roll. As for me, I'm still far from it. He usually didn't say much about this, but he actually cared a lot about it. As disciples of the Luo clan, it was inevitable that they would compare themselves to each other. Luo Shishir wanted to say something but hesitated. Luo Yanlin laughed self-deprecatingly. Shishir, you don't have to think of anything to comfort me. I know it in my heart. In our Luo clan, the most talented mystic cultivator is 4th brother. Haven't we known this since we were young? I'm only saying this because I want to work hard and cultivate so that I won't be too far behind. Luo Shishir saw his sincere expression and knew that he was speaking from the bottom of his heart, so she didn't say anything else. Father and the elders have always praised 5th brother for his open-mindedness and that he has a bright future. Luo Yanming smiled. Actually, that Lin Qifei is not bad. If there's a chance this time, I'll definitely have a good spar with her. Shuoxing patted his shoulder hard. I support you. There's just one thing. Have you seen Chuyu recently? Luo Yanming asked. That night, we agreed to have a chat when we had time. But it's been a few days, and I haven't even seen his shadow. Compared to Lin Qifei, he actually wanted to spar with Chuyu more. This was because when Elder Huafeng mentioned Lin Qifei, his reaction was not as big as when he mentioned Chuyu. This made Luo Yanming suspect that Chuyu's talent in this aspect might be even stronger than Lin Qifei's. We haven't seen him either. Luo Shishir shook her head. He might be busy cultivating with senior brother Rongxiu in Jiuheng Mountain. Anyway, I haven't heard any news about senior brother Rongxiu these few days. Probably, Luo Yanming didn't think too much about it. Then I'll wait for him to come out before I look for him. Dong! The sound of a bell rang. Luo Yanming stood up and looked in a certain direction. It's time for class. I'll be leaving first. Let's talk another day. With that, he tapped his toes and quickly left. Luo Shishir and Zhuxing didn't stay any longer and quickly left. When Luo Yanming arrived, there were already many people gathered halfway up the mountain. Obviously, these were all people who were going to class together today. Some of them looked familiar to him. They were all elder Huafeng students, but he didn't know most of them. They were probably the other elders' students. Luo Yanming quickly looked around and found that his fourth brother, Luo Yanlin, hadn't appeared yet, so he found a few familiar friends and went to meet them. Because the elders hadn't arrived yet, the atmosphere was still relatively free and casual. Everyone stood in groups of 3 or 5 and talked about something from time to time. Of course, most of them were about today's class. This time, I want to challenge senior brother Luo Yanlin. I wonder if he will agree, I think it's better to forget it. How can our standards be enough? Isn't it important to participate? It's a rare opportunity to fight with senior brother Luo Yanlin. It's good that you know. In my opinion, instead of placing all your hopes on someone who's unlikely to agree, why don't you change to someone who's not as strong and has less requirements? Hey, isn't that Zhang Jiwan? She's here today too. Her master, Elder Dan Qing, is also one of the elders in today's class. Isn't it normal for her to come? But then again, she's not a bad opponent to challenge. I think you have an ulterior motive. Why do you care? A fair and virtuous woman is a gentleman's mate. Once, she was infatuated with senior brother Rong Xiao and ignored everyone else. But now, senior brother Rong Xiao already had a princess. She should look at the others, right? All kinds of words came, making Jiang Jiwan's already depressed mood even worse. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1261. She hadn't received any reply since she sent the letter a few days ago. Logically speaking, after such a long time, the letter should have reached the Immortal Water Mausoleum by now. But for some reason, there wasn't any movement from the other side. If it was in the past, even if her father hadn't found anything, he would have sent her a letter to comfort her. This time, it was really strange. For the past 2 days, she even started to have insomnia at night. She couldn't sleep well, so she didn't have much energy during the day and looked especially haggard. Pfft! A toad lusting after a swan's meat. Liang Xiaoxiao, who was standing at the side, also heard those words and couldn't help but curse in a low voice. How dare they dream of gaining your favor, Ziyuan? They're daydreaming. Even if you're not the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower, you're still not someone they can dream of. Don't you think so, Ziyuan? As she spoke, she looked at Jiang Jiwan. But when she looked, she realized that Jiang Jiwan didn't seem to be listening to her. Her eyes weren't focused, and her expression was dazed. It seemed like she was in a daze. Liang Xiaoxiao frowned, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed through her heart. She was praising and comforting her out of goodwill, but she wasn't listening at all. Ziyuan, Ziyuan. Liang Xiaoxiao's expression quickly returned to normal, and she called Jiang Jiwan twice. Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses. What's wrong? Liang Xiaoxiao felt even more uncomfortable, and she smiled. Nothing, what are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed? Jiang Jiwan lowered her eyes. I miss Daddy a little. I haven't been back for so long. I wonder how things are at the Immortal Water Mausoleum. Liang Xiaoxiao almost laughed out loud. Miss Daddy. Others might believe Jiang Jiwan's words, but she didn't take half a word seriously. They'd known each other for a long time. In the years before Jiang Ji-won entered the academy, she spent most of her time at the Immortal Water Mausoleum. She didn't even have the chance to go to the Yuntian Tower because her father kept urging her to cultivate diligently. Jiang Ji-won's father doted on her, but this doting came with conditions. If Jiang Ji-won wasn't outstanding enough, she wouldn't have had everything she had today. The Immortal Water Mausoleum, Jiang Ji-won herself said she was tired of staying there. Ever since she entered the Spirit Firmament Academy, she wished she could stay here forever, free and unrestrained. She had never said anything like missing her father and home. It was obvious that this was just a casual excuse. With the other party's attitude, Liang Xiaoxiao naturally didn't want to be snubbed. Ziyuan, TSS, Ziyuan, S, since you want to, why don't you ask your master for a leave of absence? No matter what you do, can you take back the position of princess? Jiang Ji-won also exploded and couldn't help but raise her voice. That woman is inferior to me in every aspect. What right does she have to occupy the position of princess consort? That position was originally mine. Chapter 1262. The man's expression changed when he heard this. Jiang Ji-won also regained her senses, and her heart skipped a beat. How could she say such things in front of everyone? Even if that was what she was thinking, or even if many people were thinking the same thing, she shouldn't have said such things. The surroundings quieted down. Some of the people standing nearby looked over. Their expressions were different, and their gazes were subtle. Jiang Ji-won felt like there was a dagger at her back, and she wanted to find a hole to hide in. There were some things that others could say, but she couldn't say. Previously, she had been hinting that she was the one who had been robbed of her love. Many people didn't know much about the situation at the Yuntian Tower, so they believed her words and thought that she had been wronged. They sympathized with her and loved her. But if she said it out loud, the nature of the situation would change completely. Wasn't she telling everyone that she had always regarded the position of princess consort as her own? I didn't mean that, Jiang Ji-won panicked and wanted to explain. But after stammering for a long time, she couldn't come up with a reasonable excuse. The more nervous she was, the more she didn't know how to salvage the situation. Senior Jiang Ji-won. Right at this moment, an indifferent and cold voice sounded out, breaking this stiff and cold atmosphere. Jiang Ji-won immediately turned her head and saw that the person who spoke was a young man who looked about 20 years old. He was wearing a green robe, and he was tall and handsome. Just by standing there, he looked like an ink painting. His eyes were much lighter than the average person's, and it made him look more distant. You are Lin Qifei. Jiang Ji-won remembered that she had seen this face before. If she remembered correctly, this person was the first one to enter the master roll of honor among the new students. At the same time, he was the young master of the Lin family at Grotto Heaven Cliff. Back then, Chu Luiyue disguised himself and went to the Yuntian Tower with them. Thinking of this, Jiang Ziyuan felt a little annoyed in her heart. She loathed everything related to that woman. Why are you looking for me? Jiang Ji-won's tone was obviously much colder. Lin Qifei didn't seem to mind and smiled. There is one thing. I heard that senior martial sister Jiang Ji-won's cultivation as a mystic cultivator is quite outstanding. Qifei would like to ask for guidance. Is that possible? So it was because of this. Jiang Ji-won sneered in her heart, but on the surface, she looked indifferent. Junior brother Lin, you've just ascended to the Azure Sky role, so it's inevitable that you're young and impetuous. It was understandable that he wanted to find someone to challenge. However, you have to carefully choose your candidates. There are many mystic cultivators present who can spar with you. You don't have to waste your time with me. These words sounded polite on the surface, but in reality, they were mocking Lin Qifei for not being strong enough and overestimating himself. As long as one had a temper, it was inevitable that they would get angry. However, Lin Qifei's expression was normal when he heard this, as if he didn't care. Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Jiwon is right. People who are weak indeed shouldn't try to compete with people who are much stronger than them. Otherwise, the one who will be humiliated and injured in the end will be themselves. Jiang Jiwon's expression changed. This was blatantly scolding her. Even if one used their toes to think, they would know that Lin Qifei was hinting at what had happened to the people of Cloud Heaven Tower that day. She had lost to that Chu Luyue several times in a row. What are you trying to say? Jiang Jiwon had lost her patience. Lin Qifei smiled. What I wanted to say was what I said just now. Did Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Jiwon not hear me clearly? He raised his chin slightly, and his eyes gradually turned cold. I wanted to ask Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Jiwon to spar with me, but Senior Marshal Sister Jiang didn't seem willing to agree. However, I don't think the gap between me and Senior Marshal Sister Jiang is as big as you think. Jiang Jiwon was so angry that she laughed. What did you say? Did he mean that she was arrogant and conceited? Junior Marshal Brother Lin, do you think that you're invincible just because you're on the Azure Cloud roll? Don't forget that there are dozens of people between you and me in that regard. At this moment, the commotion had attracted the attention of many people. Most people thought that Lin Qifei was a little arrogant. He was very outstanding, but Jiang Jiwon had been in the academy for several years, and she was publicly recognized as one of the best. She was ranked at the top of the Azure Cloud roll. He actually said that. Wasn't he thinking too highly of himself? However, Lin Qifei didn't seem to care about the opinions of the people around him. He looked at Jiang Jiwon and said, Senior Marshal Sister Jiang, if you don't believe me, you can give it a try. This was a challenge that couldn't be any more direct. No, it could be said that he was provoking her. Are you sure? Jiang Jiwon sized up Lin Qifei and narrowed her eyes. Junior Marshal Brother Lin, it's good to be bold, but sometimes, if you don't know how to restrain yourself, you'll bring trouble to yourself. I'll give you one last piece of advice, you're on your own. Lin Qifei glanced at her, and the corners of his mouth hooked up without a smile. Thank you for your advice, Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Jiwon. My courage is really nothing compared to yours. He spoke slowly, enunciating each and every word clearly. After all, you even dared to distort the truth in front of so many people. What do I not dare to do? Jiang Jiwon's heart sank. She tried to control her anger and forced a smile. Junior Marshal Brother Lin, what do you mean by that? I don't understand. The position of the princess consort is decided through a competition. That day, you lost from the beginning to the end, but you didn't know that the princess consort is inferior to you in every aspect. Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Jiwon, how did you say that? With every word Lin Qifei said, Jiang Jiwon's face turned paler. By the end, her face was pale and her body was trembling. You. She opened her mouth, but couldn't say anything to refute him. Because what Lin Qifei said was true. She lost to Chu Luyue in more than one aspect. Seeing that Jiang Jiwon didn't refute him, the crowd gradually realized something and looked at each other. Most of them didn't know much about what happened at the Yuntian Tower. Occasionally, they heard some news, but it was mostly from Jiang Jiwon and the others. Why was Lin Qifei's words so different from what Jiang Jiwon said before? Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Jiwon. Since you lost, you can also say that you won. Then. Even if I lose, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? Lin Qifei asked. Why don't we have a competition to see who will win? Beast Park. Everything was calm. Elder Yu looked in a certain direction and frowned in confusion. It has been a few days, why is there still no news from Chu Yu's side? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1263. He originally thought that it would be good enough if Chuyu could survive one night. Who knew that Chuyu had not sent out any signal for help until now? And from the situation of the Xian formation in the Beast Park, he was indeed fine and seemed to be staying in one place all the time. Could it be that he found an excellent hiding place? Elder Yu thought to himself. But the mythical beasts in the Beast Park were not so good-tempered. For some reason, the mythical beasts did not cause any trouble until today. He thought for a while and decided to wait a little longer. If Chuyu could really survive a month in here, then he would really have a whole new level of respect for Chuyu. Chu Luyue, who was in the cave, had almost forgotten about the passage of time. The surrounding force of heaven and earth surged into her body and flowed through her limbs and bones before finally gathering in her dantian. As the surrounding force of heaven and earth increased, the 7 lines on the water droplet became brighter and brighter. But sensing this movement, Chu Luyue was unable to relax. Because, according to her original calculations, she should have broken through a few days ago. But for some reason, all kinds of force of heaven and earth were circulating in her dantian, and there was no movement until today. Chu Luyue was puzzled. Breaking through to the peak of rank 7 was not a difficult thing for her. According to her past experience, she would be able to break through in less than a day. But now, the situation was developing in an unknown direction. After thinking for a while, Chu Luyue decided to wait patiently and continued to devour the surrounding force of heaven and earth. After some time, finally, there was a slight fluctuation in her dantian. Then, a vigorous force surged out from within. This force had a trace of a familiar aura. Chu Luyue was stunned for a while before she realized that this force seemed to be the force of heaven and earth that she had inherited from Taizu of the northern underworld. Ever since she had devoured all of this force of heaven and earth, it had quietly entered the water droplet and did not cause any movement. Chu Luyue did not expect that this force of heaven and earth would suddenly surge out at this moment. After a long period of nourishment and refinement in the water droplet, this force of heaven and earth had become extremely pure. In an instant, it surged towards Chu Luyue's body. Chu Luyue was stunned. Then, she felt waves of piercing pain all over her body. She was startled, but she immediately understood something. This force of heaven and earth was going to help her break through to rank 8. After realizing this, Chu Luyue made a prompt decision and began to guide the force of heaven and earth. Although she did not know why this happened, it was a rare opportunity. Since she could directly break through to rank 8, why not give it a try? Under Chu Luyue's intentional control, the originally messy and chaotic force started to flow into her Yuan meridian in an orderly manner. The Tianjing Yuan meridian's endurance was much stronger than the Daijing Yuan meridians. Hence, after the initial piercing pain, Chu Luyue's body quickly adapted to the strong impact. During this process, some of the power had also silently fused into her flesh and bones. The force of heaven and earth continued to surge out of the water droplet. After all, it was the force of heaven and earth left behind by a god-rank powerhouse. Its power could not be underestimated. This force of heaven and earth was stored in the water droplet. Chu Luyue had never paid much attention to it. It was only now that she began to devour this force of heaven and earth that she realized how terrifying it was. As she continued to absorb this force of heaven and earth into her body, her aura began to strengthen rapidly. If anyone else was here, they would be shocked to see this scene. Because Chu Luyue's speed of devouring the force of heaven and earth was too shocking. When ordinary cultivators tried to break through to rank 8, they would need to make sufficient preparations. To put it bluntly, they had to accumulate enough force of heaven and earth to break through to rank 8. For a martial artist, the higher they broke through, the more experience they needed. In fact, the force of heaven and earth that Chu Luyue was mobilizing had far exceeded that of ordinary cultivators. Chu Luyue also realized this point, so she could only continue to circulate the force of heaven and earth. She had long known that when the water droplet in her body wanted to break through, she would need to spend more force than others. Early stage to middle stage to peak, at least they were at the same stage, so it was not that difficult. However, every time he advanced in rank, the situation would become very troublesome. Not to mention other things, just the last time she broke through to rank 7, she had spent a lot of effort. She did not expect that the endless force of heaven and earth that she devoured would come in handy during this breakthrough. Crack! A soft sound was heard. The 7th line on the water droplet finally became as bright as the other lines. However, this was only the beginning. Chu Luiyue held her breath and did not dare to be careless. She continued to increase her strength and urged the force of heaven and earth to circulate. Boom! A loud sound suddenly came from the sky. Dark clouds gathered and the wind howled. The sky quickly darkened. Ah Cheong, who was guarding the cave entrance, looked up and then turned back as if she sensed something. Is she going to break through consecutively? At the same time, Elder Yu Yu, who was a few mountains away, heard the commotion and was also very surprised. He frowned slightly. Why is the sky turning dark so quickly? No. Suddenly, his expression changed. That kid is going to break through. He tapped the tip of his foot and immediately flew in that direction. Breaking through in the Beast Park. Is this kid courting death? Digression, midnight has begun. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1264. It was dark between heaven and earth. The wind swept the clouds away and whistled past. Such a situation caused the magical beasts in the Beast Park to become restless. Some of them even started to move toward the mountain where Chu Luiyue was. The wind was chilling, and the air was cold. However, Chu Luiyue, who was preparing to break through in the cave, was unaware of all this. After breaking through to the peak of level 7, Chu Luiyue did not stop at all. She continued to devour the surrounding energy of heaven and earth. Then, it merged with the energy that surged out from the water droplets in her body. Finally, it seeped into every inch of her muscles, blood, and bones. Her body was like a black hole. No matter how much energy entered her body, she could easily accommodate it. Of course, there were also benefits after breaking through to the peak of level 7. The speed at which she circulated her energy became faster. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes tightly. Her mind was clear. There was only one thought in her mind, to break through to level 8. Outside the cave, Ah Cheong, who was in charge of guarding the cave, scratched the ground uneasily. It looked at the surroundings. It was already evening. In addition, Chu Luiyue was about to break through. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the light was even dimmer. Many things could not be seen clearly. As far as the eye could see, it could only see the dark, undulating mountain range. Some soft sounds came from all directions. A hint of alertness flashed across Ah Cheong's eyes. When Elder Yu Yu arrived, the first thing he saw was such a scene. A huge adult steel spine beast was standing in front of a cave. It was majestic and vigilant. Its reaction was extremely sensitive. The moment Elder Yu Yu arrived, it sensed his aura and looked up. Elder Yu Yu's heart skipped a beat. This steel spine beast was looking at him with eyes full of hostility and warning. It was as if it would fight to the death if he took another step forward. Elder Yu Yu frowned. This steel spine beast. What's wrong with it? He had been in the Beast Park for quite some time. The magical beasts here were more or less familiar with him. Under normal circumstances, both parties were more polite when they met. It was rare for them to quarrel. But this time, this steel spine beast took such a stance when it saw him. It was really strange. It looked as if it was protecting its cub, but the commotion came from inside the cave. Logically speaking, the one inside should be Chu Yu. Elder Yu was puzzled, but he did not dare to act rashly. The demonic beasts in the beast park were usually quite restrained. However, they were not contracted. The pride and wildness in their bones determined that they were definitely not easy to deal with. At this moment, some strange noises came from the surroundings. Elder Yu looked serious. If you want to become strong, you have to have the courage to challenge the strong, right? However, this child has always been steady. He usually won't do things that he isn't sure of. Today's battle. Actually, I'm also very curious about who will win. Elder Dan Qing's face darkened. He sneered in his heart. Lin Qifei had a domineering personality. Now, even Xu Feng had become like this. How could a brat who had just entered the azure cloud role be a match for Jiang Jiwan? He flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "It's good for young people to suffer more and suffer more setbacks." Elder Xu Feng raised his eyebrows and pretended not to hear anything. He changed the topic. Actually, that's not important. After all, this is just a small competition. The most important thing is for everyone to learn from each other and improve their strength. On the other hand, Jiang Jiwan. Dan Qing, I saw that she has been in a daze today. She doesn't seem to be in a good state. Elder Dan Qing frowned. In fact, he had noticed this as well. Based on his understanding of Jiang Jiwan, she should have encountered some trouble. Coupled with what Lin Qifei had said just now, her expression looked even worse. Actually, everyone has times when they are haggard and tired. This is normal. But no matter what, there are some things that shouldn't be said carelessly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1265. Elder Danqing's heart seemed to be clenched by something. He turned his head and looked at Elder Xu Feng with a frown. Rongxiu isn't here, but that doesn't mean he didn't hear those words. Elder Xu Feng didn't seem to notice the warning in the other party's eyes as he spoke leisurely. That princess consort was personally chosen by Rongxiu, which is enough to show his feelings. Moreover, when Rongxiu returned to the academy, he admitted that the princess consort was the person he truly loved. If he knew that Jiang Jiwan had slandered that princess consort in front of so many people and even claimed that the position of princess consort was hers. With his personality, he wouldn't let this matter go so easily. Dan Qing, what do you think? Elder Danqing's expression changed slightly. Rongxiu was tough and ruthless. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to ascend to the position of the Holy Sun and take charge of the Yuntian Tower in just a few years. If he really wanted to pursue this matter, he was afraid that Jiang Ziyuan's end would not be any better. In fact, in the past few years, Jiang Jiwan had deliberately made her relationship with Rongxiu sound very ambiguous. It wasn't the first time that outsiders misunderstood. However, Rongxiu was no longer in the academy at that time, so he naturally didn't care. However, it was different now. Rongxiu was here, and if he wanted to know anything, he would definitely know everything. Elder Danqing's heart slowly sank. Others might not know, but as Jiang Jiwan's master, he knew best what Rongxiu's attitude toward her. What childhood sweethearts, what elder's agreement, in fact, it was all just Jiang Jiwan's wishful thinking. Now, the princess consort was living well in the Yuntian Tower. How could she allow others to slander her? I will deal with this matter. Elder Danqing said in a low voice. I won't trouble others to teach my own student. Elder Xu Feng knew that he had taken it seriously, so he smiled and didn't say anything else. Although Danqing was stubborn and had seen many storms, his mind was still clear. Unfortunately, Jiang Jiwan didn't have that brain. Rongxiu was in the academy, and she dared to say such things in front of so many people. Elder Shu Feng stroked his beard. I'm afraid Jiang Ziyuan's future days won't be easy. Lin Qifei and Jiang Jiwan were facing each other. Between the two and Rong Xiao was a floating chessboard. The two of them took turns to make their moves. In the beginning, Rong Xiao zeshed, but gradually, she realized that something was wrong with the situation. Every time she took a step, Lin Qifei would quickly follow, and the position of his piece was always accurate. He didn't seem to need any time to react, and his movements were extremely agile. In the beginning, Jiang Jiwan could still deceive herself, comforting herself that it was just the beginning and the game hadn't started yet. Lin Qifei had a lot of room to play, which was why he could play so smoothly. However, as time passed, more and more pieces appeared on the chessboard, and the situation became more and more complicated. Even Jiang Jiwan had to think twice before placing a piece. But Lin Qifei didn't seem to be affected at all, and was still as sharp as before. At this point, Jiang Jiwan finally felt a little powerless. She quickly looked up, but saw that Lin Qifei's expression was as calm as ever. Sensing her gaze, Lin Qifei smiled and nodded at her. Jiang Jiwan gritted her teeth. From her point of view, Lin Qifei's reaction was clearly a provocation. However, no matter how upset she was, she couldn't reverse the current situation. She became more and more anxious, and cold sweat started to form on her forehead. At this time, the onlookers had also noticed that something was wrong. They secretly exchanged meaningful glances with each other. They were all Xian masters, so of course, they could see that something was fishy. Looking at the current situation, it was obvious that Jiang Jiwan was at a disadvantage. I didn't expect Lin Qifei to be so strong. He couldn't have been hiding his strength before, right? I think it's most likely so. You have to know that Jiang Jiwan's ranking on the Azure Cloud roll is much higher than his. But looking at the situation, Lin Qifei is actually half a head above her. If Jiang Jiwan really loses, wouldn't she lose all her face? The strong are respected. If she can't do it, someone will replace her sooner or later. I think she hasn't put much effort into her cultivation, so it's normal for her to be overtaken. I think so too. Didn't Lin Qifei just say that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower actually won against her fair and square? That's not what she said before. If you lose, can you announce it to the others with great fanfare? Actually, I felt that something was wrong from the start. Rong Xiao is the holy son of the Yuntian Tower. How noble is his status? How could he casually marry an ordinary girl as his princess consort? Who knows how much of what Jiang Jiwan said is true and how much of it is false? Although the person who spoke had tried to lower his voice, everyone present was not weak, so they could more or less hear it. Including Jiang Jiwan. She felt even more sullen in her heart, but at this time, she couldn't even say a word of rebuttal. Because what they said was the truth. When everyone didn't know the truth, she might still be able to speak ambiguously. But once they understood, she couldn't continue like that. Because when the truth came out, the liar would often be the most embarrassed. Paw! Suddenly, a sound came from the chessboard. Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses and looked over, but was shocked to find that Lin Qifei's move had cut off her path. Lin Qifei said indifferently. Senior sister Jiang Jiwan, you lost. These few casual words were like a heavy stone that ruthlessly smashed into Jiang Ziyuan's heart. Her mind went blank for a moment, and she almost couldn't believe everything in front of her. She was just distracted for a moment. How did it become like this? However, on the chessboard, she was indeed completely cut. She really lost. This realization made Jiang Jiwan's legs go weak, and she almost fell to the ground. The young man who wanted to challenge her before quickly stepped forward to support her. Ziyuan, are you all right? Jiang Jiwan pushed him away, as if she was afraid of being contaminated by something dirty. The young man's expression darkened, and he silently retreated. Lin Qifei raised his eyebrows slightly. Senior Sister Jiang Ji1, it seems that your strength has it increased since you returned from the Yuntian Tower. These words were like a slap to Jiang Ji1's face. She stared at the chessboard, took a deep breath, and suppressed the anger in her heart with great difficulty. I've been neglecting my cultivation recently. Thank you, junior brother Lin, for your correction. After saying that, she turned around and walked in the direction of the elders. Elder Danqing took a step forward with some worry. Ziyuan, Master, I want to take a leave of absence. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1267. Suddenly, a sharp and painful cry resounded through the forest. Elder Yu looked over and vaguely saw a steelback beast cub at the foot of the mountain. It was running back, stumbling along the way. He recognized at a glance that this was the baby steel spine beast that had just been born not long ago. It seemed to be injured as it limped while running. A line of blood vaguely appeared behind it. Elder Yu went closer and took a closer look. He saw that there was a bloody hole in one of the baby's hind legs. It looked like some ferocious beast had forcefully bitten off a large piece of flesh. The white bones could almost be seen. Elder Yu was shocked. The steel spine beast had rough skin and thick flesh. Among the magical beasts in the beast park, its physical strength could definitely be ranked in the top 3. To be able to injure it to such an extent, it was definitely not an ordinary magical beast. From the looks of it, it was most likely, but these magical beasts usually stayed out of each other's way. Why would they suddenly start fighting? Needless to say, this was still a baby. Injuring it would undoubtedly offend the adult steel spine beast. This time, it would probably be a fight to the death. Just as Elder Yu was thinking about these questions, the baby steel spine beast had already started running up the mountain peak. As it ran, it constantly let out sorrowful cries for help. Ah Cheong, who was in charge of guarding the entrance of the cave, heard this familiar sound and immediately looked down the mountain. Their night vision was extremely strong. Even though the sky was already dark, Cheong was still able to see the scene below very quickly. A strong smell of blood assaulted them. Ah Cheong's expression changed. Only then did she see the wound on her baby's leg. Swoosh! The steel needles on its back instantly stood up. A trace of biting cold murderous intent flashed across its eyes. Roar! It angrily raised its head and let out an angry roar. This roar was vigorous and powerful, and it instantly spread mightily through the forest. All the magical beasts knew that this was a warning. Hearing its mother's voice, the baby steel spine beast felt much more at ease. But very quickly, it was shocked to discover that the magical beast chasing after it did not stop. In fact, its speed seemed to be even faster. Swoosh! The one behind suddenly pounced. The cub hurriedly dodged and almost stumbled to the ground. During this process, its body fell onto a broken piece of wood, and a thick branch that stretched out diagonally stabbed into its wound. Roar! The steelback beast cub let out a pained hiss. But at this moment, it couldn't care less. It struggled to get up and continued to run up the mountain. Go home. As long as he returned to his mother's side, he would be safe. With that thought in mind, it ran back with all its might. Ah Cheong saw all of this. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he wouldn't dare to believe that such a thing would happen. If this matter were to spread, others would probably think that he was joking. He frowned and suddenly thought of the rumors related to Chu Yu. Each and every one of them was unbelievable. Originally, he didn't take Chu Yu too seriously and only thought that he was a young boy who loved to play around. No matter what, he was just a little more talented and lucky. But now he realized that he was wrong. To be able to make an adult steel spine beast willingly give up its bloodline, what exactly did Chu Yu do in the beast park these few days? Actually, Chu Luiyue didn't do anything. She was just cultivating and planning to break through to rank 8 warrior. A few days had passed, and she maintained the same posture. While devouring the surrounding energy of heaven and earth, she completely merged the power stored in the water droplet with herself. Even she was shocked by the formation needed for this breakthrough. Because this had long surpassed the scale of her breakthrough to rank 8 warrior in her previous life. But from the beginning to the end, she had done her best. Vaguely, she felt an invisible barrier. In her heart, she was certain, that was the threshold of rank 8 warrior. She held her breath, gathered her strength, and charged toward the barrier. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1268. Rumble. A huge energy wave suddenly came out from the cave. Elder Yu Yu's heart skipped a beat. This commotion, was Chu Yu really just breaking through to the 8th stage? He had cultivated for many years and had seen many cultivators trying to break through this threshold. There was no lack of outstanding geniuses among them. However, he had never seen anyone who could cause such a huge wave. Even when some cultivators broke through to the 9th stage, there wouldn't be such a huge commotion. Elder Yu Yu clenched his fists tightly and had the urge to scold someone. Before coming in, he had clearly told Chu Yu to honestly tell him his strength. At that time, he thought that he had already said it, but he didn't expect that there was still something hidden. When this matter was over, he would definitely teach Chu Yu a lesson. Roar! A loud and excited roar suddenly came from another mountain peak not far away. This sound was like a mysterious mechanism had been opened in an instant. That unknown and terrifying flood had already poured down before anyone could react. Screech dash, in another direction, another sharp screech rang out. Following that, all kinds of sounds came from all directions. Those magical beasts that had quietly arrived and had been waiting quietly finally couldn't hold back and bared their fangs. The roars that rose and fell were filled with endless greed and lust. Although the killing had yet to truly begin, the air was already filled with a thick smell of blood. Elder Yu Yu's back suddenly broke out in cold sweat. The number of magical beasts that had been lured over this time was much more than what he had expected. Under the gloomy sky, figures filled with murderous intent walked out from the lofty mountains and lofty ridges, heading towards the mountain peak in the middle. Elder Yu Yu lowered his head to take a look and his scalp went numb. There were simply too many of them. The commotion caused by Chu Yu's breakthrough was too big. Other than the magical beasts nearby, even some of the magical beasts in the distance sensed the commotion and rushed over. If he didn't think of a way to solve it in time, the number of magical beasts that gathered here would only increase. Elder Yu Yu's body tensed up as his mind raced, hoping to find a solution as soon as possible. But how could it be so easy? Now, generally speaking, there were only 2 directions. One of them forcefully interrupted Chu Yu's breakthrough and quickly brought him away from this place. The other was to drive away all these magical beasts and save Chu Yu from danger. But no matter which one it was, it sounded impossible. When a cultivator wanted to break through, they needed an absolutely stable environment. Any interference could cause him to fail. In the worst-case scenario, it could cause him to never be able to cross this shackle again. If he did this, what if he ruined Chu Yu? Not to mention, Chu Yu still had an adult steel spine beast guarding him. A steel spine beast that was willing to give up its own cubs in order to protect him. Once it sensed that someone was approaching, what kind of power would it erupt with? Just thinking about it was frightening. As for the second method, Elder Yu Yu admitted that he didn't have this ability. Even if he had been patrolling this area all year round, he would definitely not be a match for so many magical beasts. In a moment of desperation, Elder Yu Yu finally took out his green jade token and sent out a distress signal. Chu Yu is in danger, help him. It was already night time. Elder Bo Yen and the others arrived at Thousand Wine Mountain and planned to continue repairing it. But just as he stood still, he suddenly sensed something and his expression changed. Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at him strangely and asked, "What's wrong?" Elder Bo Yen didn't say anything and directly took out his green jade token. A line of words slowly appeared. Elder Bo Yan's pupils shrank. Sensing the change in his aura, Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at each other and felt uneasy. "I have something to do, I have to leave first." Elder Bo Yen hurriedly said and was about to turn and leave. "Hey, what's going on?" Elder Ouyang couldn't help but ask. They rarely saw such an expression on Elder Bo Yan's face. Elder Bo Yen paused and said, "There's a problem at the Beast Park. I'll go take a look first." Beast Park. Doesn't that mean that something happened to Chu Yu? But Yu Yu and the others have been. Before Elder Ouyang could finish his sentence, he suddenly fell silent. This news obviously came from those few people. It could be seen that the matter was no longer within their control. "Let's go together." Shang Yusin made a prompt decision. Elder Bo Yen shook his head. "You guys can continue to stay here. After all, there's a great Xian formation at the Beast Park. Yu Yu and the others are also there. Nothing should happen for a while. However, if you guys follow me, you'll be too big of a target and attract too much attention." Only a few of them knew that Chu Yu was locked up in the Beast Park. If this news spread, their previous efforts would be wasted. Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at each other and could only agree. "If there's any problem, we'll rush over immediately." Elder Bo Yen nodded. With a tap of his foot, he quickly left. Splash! The sound of water suddenly came from the mouth of the spring. Elder Ouyang instantly became alert. "What's the situation?" Shang Yusin quickly went forward and carefully checked the surroundings. He heaved a sigh of relief. "Nothing, it seems like a stone at the side fell into the spring." Elder Ouyang was skeptical and went over to take a look personally. He was only relieved after that. "It's good that nothing happened. We've already reached such a critical juncture. We can't afford to make any more mistakes." At the same time, Elder Wanjing, who was arranging the medicinal herbs in his residence, also received Elder Yu Yu's message. When he saw the line of words on the green jade token, he was so shocked that he stood up abruptly and flipped the table over. The dozens of precious medicinal herbs that were neatly arranged on the table all fell to the ground and mixed together. However, Elder Wanjing couldn't care less about this. He took off and left, should have stayed there and not left. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared into the night outside the door. Boom! Another wave of energy spread out from the cave. At this moment, the Xian formation barrier in the sky suddenly flickered. Elder Yu Yu quickly flew up, and with a wave of his sleeve, an opening appeared on the profound formation. A figure quickly rushed in. It was Elder Bo Yen. "How's Chu Yu?" Elder Bo Yen couldn't wait to ask Elder Yu Yu when he saw him. Elder Yu Yu didn't have time to answer before he saw another person flying over. "Disciple! Disciple!" Elder Wanjing shouted anxiously. After entering, he saw Elder Yu Yu and immediately went forward and grabbed his wrist. "Where's my disciple? How is he now?" Elder Yu Yu swallowed his saliva with difficulty and pointed downwards. "There, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." This is indeed not the energy of heaven and earth that can be activated when one is preparing to break through to the peak of the seventh step. I even feel that this should only happen when one is breaking through to the ninth step. Elder Bo Yan's gaze swept across the many magical beasts below, and he felt rather regretful. I can only blame myself for not making things clear to that child back then. Now that things have turned out like this, Elder Wanjing rubbed his face hard. No, it's my dereliction of duty as a master. That day on the road, he had told Chuyu many things, but he had missed this. He clearly knew that the child had outstanding talent, but how could he forget the most important point? Elder Bo Yen patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. Wanzhang, things have already turned out like this. Let's not be in a hurry to blame ourselves. It's more important to get Chuyu out first. After all, Chuyu had just broken through to the middle of the 7th step not long ago. Who would have thought that he was going to break through again so quickly? And he was going to break through to the 8th step. This series of events had happened too quickly and too suddenly, and they didn't even have time to react. Elder Wanzhang's face was filled with worry. Save. How can we save him now? Usually, these magical beasts were more reasonable, but the current situation was special. They were controlled by impulse and greed, and couldn't listen at all. It was even more impossible to use force. Even if the few of them worked together, they wouldn't be able to defeat these magical beasts. Elder Yu saw that the two of them were filled with worry and added, actually, there's still room to turn things around. Chuyu isn't alone now. Look at the position halfway up the mountain. The two of them followed his gaze and looked over. That's a steel spine beast. The corner of Elder Wanzhang's eyes twitched. That's right. But that steel spine beast isn't attacking Chuyu, but to protect him. As soon as he said that, Elder Bo Yen and Elder Wanzhang looked at him with an extremely strange gaze. Elder Yu smiled bitterly. It's true, roar. A roar suddenly came from not far away. Grief and despair. They all looked over, and only then did they see that there were two demonic beasts fighting on top of the mountain. No, to be precise, it should be a one-sided slaughter. The one that was attacking crazily was a golden cloud leopard that was brown all over and had golden spots on its body. On the ground in front of it, there was a steel spine beast that was covered in blood and on the verge of death. More than half of the steel needles on its back were broken, and its body was covered in wounds. There was almost no place that was unscathed. Most of them were caused by the bite of this golden cloud leopard. That's the cub of the steel spine beast. Elder Yu sighed helplessly. In order to protect Chuyu, its mother chose to stay in the cave and didn't go down to save it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1270. It sounds unbelievable, right? But it is the truth. I saw it with my own eyes. Of course, all of you have witnessed it now. Elder Yu shook his head. I don't know what Chuyu did to make that adult steel spine beast act like this. It would rather sacrifice its own bloodline to protect him. Elder Bo Yen and Elder Yu were shocked and fell silent. But even with that steel spine beast, he might not be able to hold on for long. Elder Yu looked at the sky. It usually takes a long time to break through to rank 8. I am not sure when Chuyu will be able to break through. But once these magical beasts attack together, I am afraid. Not to mention, Chuyu might fail to break through. That would be even worse. Elder Bo Yen suddenly said, if we can lure the tiger away from the mountain, that won't work. Chuyu was about to break through and countless heaven and earth energy was being mobilized by him. In the eyes of these magical beasts, there was nothing more desirable than this. Elder Yu had been guarding the beast park for many years and was more experienced than the others. If even he said so, it meant that it was really impossible. And under such circumstances, it is basically impossible for us to get close to that mountain and take him away. The adult steel spine beast in front of the cave will obviously fight to the death against the invaders. We are included in that. Also, there are so many magical beasts watching us. If we break in now, not only will it not help the situation, it might even agitate them and force them to attack. This won't work, that won't work. Then what should we do? Elder Wanjing couldn't help but shout at Elder Bo Yen. Look! I told you not to send him here. Danger! You didn't listen. Bo Yen, if anything happens to my disciple, I will not let you off. Facing Elder Wanjing's anger, Elder Bo Yen didn't get angry. This is Lingshao College. The dean isn't here, so I am in charge. With me here, I will not let anything happen to Chu Yu. His sonorous tone gradually calmed Elder Wanjing down. He closed his eyes. Bo Yen, I am sorry. I lost my composure just now, let's not talk about this now. The most important thing is to think of a way to bring him out, rumble. Another shocking energy ripple came from the cave. Elder Bo Yen clenched his fists and hesitated for a long time. Let's wait for him to break through first. Halfway up the mountain, the golden cloud leopard coldly stared at the steel-spine beast cub in front of it. The thick smell of blood permeated the air. It was a divine beast. Dealing with a 9th-grade cub like this was a piece of cake. Moreover, the only adult steel-spine beast that could protect it had been guarding the mountain all this time and had not come down. The golden cloud leopard looked up and licked its paws as if provoking Lin Fan. Of course, Ah Cheong could see all of this clearly. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1271. This sudden sword strike shocked everyone on the spot. The surroundings of the mountain fell into a strange silence. However, Ah Cheong reacted instantly and looked back excitedly. A slender figure was walking out of the deep and serene cave. It was Chu Luiyue. She walked over step by step, landing silently, her movements comfortable and natural. Her every move seemed to be filled with an indescribable elegance and freedom. Even the wind seemed to be especially gentle when it passed by her. The sky was very dark at the moment, but when she appeared, the surroundings seemed to light up in an instant. She looked the same as before, but vaguely, there seemed to be something different. That was a change that would only occur after she became stronger. Ah Cheong, what are you spacing out for? Hurry up and bring it back. Chu Luiyue stood still and smiled at Ah Cheong. Ah Cheong suddenly came back to her senses, nodded vigorously, and ran down. Bang! Bang! Its body was extremely large. When it ran down the mountain, it looked like it wanted to trample the entire mountain. But it was extremely fast, and the distance wasn't very far to begin with. It arrived in the blink of an eye. It carefully lowered its head and cautiously and lovingly nudged the head of the steel-spine beast cub lying on the ground. A sparkling radiance appeared on its silver horn. It moved closer and touched the cub's horn with its horn. A warm and majestic power instantly flowed into the cub's body. The steel-spine beast cub that had been despairing and waiting for death didn't wait for that fatal blow. Instead, it felt a familiar presence. It slowly opened its eyes and saw its mother whom it was most familiar with. It stared blankly, as if it didn't understand what had happened. Ah Cheong carefully carried it and walked back step by step. With the support of its power, the dying steel-spine beast cub recovered a portion of its strength. It only vaguely understood what had happened when it was placed in front of its own cave again. Its injuries are quite serious. I'll give it some medicine first to stabilize its situation. Later, I'll treat it carefully and nurse it back to health. As Chu Luiyue spoke, he took out a bottle, poured out 5 pills, and fed them to the steelback beast cubs. A normal person would only need 1 pill, but the steel-spine beast had a huge body, so 5 pills were more or less enough. The cub didn't struggle and swallowed it obediently. Ah Cheong stuck close to its face. Her eyes were still blood red, but the hatred and despair in them had already disappeared. What replaced it was endless joy and gratitude. The mother and son quietly snuggled together, as if nothing could separate them. Chu Luiyue felt a lump in his throat when he saw this. He solemnly said to Ah Cheong, this time. Thank you. All the emotions, gratitude, shame, comfort, were gathered in these few words. Although Chu Luiyue had been in the cave the whole time and did not see what had happened with her own eyes, she had been paying attention to her surroundings before and after her breakthrough. She could roughly guess what had happened. She never thought that Ah Cheong would be willing to give up her own child for her. This shocked and touched her, but also made her feel guilty. I will help it recuperate. Chu Luiyue paused. Also, next time. Don't do this again. Ah Cheong shook her head. If she had to do it again, she would still make the same choice. For her child, she could give up her own life to avenge it. But she wanted her to live. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to be blocked by something, and tears welled up in her eyes. She took a deep breath, and a bright and proud smile bloomed on her lips. I was wrong. There won't be a next time. She would never allow such a thing to happen again. You stay here and guard it. Leave the rest to me. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she stepped forward and raised her hand. Swish! The sword that killed the golden cloud leopard quickly flew back. Sharp, cold, and majestic. It was Scarlet Cloud's sword. Chu Luiyue held the sword hilt tightly. It was slightly cold to the touch, and the eyes of the dragon head on the hilt flickered with a cold luster. However, Chu Luiyue's heart was burning with passion. Even though Chu Luiyue had already predicted that Qi Shao's sword's prowess would be many times stronger than all the Yuan instruments she had before, its frightening destructive power still shocked Chu Luiyue when it was truly used. When Chu Luiyue threw out the sword, she actually didn't inject any force into it. She even casually threw out the sword due to the urgent situation back then and controlled it to kill the golden cloud leopard with her thoughts. In the end, it killed it with one blow. One had to know that the golden cloud leopard was a real divine beast. From this, one could see the power of Scarlet Cloud's sword. A venerable artifact. It was indeed worthy of its reputation. Chu Luiyue lowered her gaze to take a look. After killing a divine beast, Scarlet Cloud's sword was still bright and clean, without a trace of blood. The surroundings were completely silent. The roars of various magical beasts that were previously filled with all kinds of roars came to an abrupt end the moment the golden cloud leopard was killed. Among those present, the lowest level was a 9th grade magical beast. Of course, they were not stupid. At the very least, after witnessing the scene just now, they would not treat Chu Luiyue as a piece of meat that could be slaughtered on a chopping board. Chu Luiyue looked up, and her cold eyes swept across the surrounding magical beasts one by one. Her red lips curled into a cold smile. Who's next? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1272. It was still dead silent. Only the night breeze blew through the mountains, causing her clothes to flutter. The young man standing on the mountain had a slender figure, but at this moment, he straightened his back and confronted the beasts. Most importantly, he didn't lose in terms of aura. Elder Yu and the other two were standing in the air. When they saw this scene, they were all stunned on the spot. Their expressions turned sluggish for an instant. Is this really my disciple, Chu Yu? Elder Wanjing felt his throat dry up as he stuttered out the question. As soon as he said this, he wanted to give himself a slap. What kind of nonsense was this? If that wasn't his precious disciple, who else could it be? Look at that face. Look at that figure. Look at that imposing aura. And that Scarlet Cloud sword. Wasn't that the precious disciple that he had been longing for? Rank 8, he really broke through to become a rank 8 warrior. Elder Bo Yen muttered softly, his eyes filled with shock. Breaking through to become a rank 8 warrior was definitely not that simple. Many cultivators had to start preparing in advance in order to cross this threshold and used almost all their means. However, those who could successfully break through were few and far between. The most important thing was that the more talented a cultivator was, the more difficulties and troubles they would face when breaking through this hurdle. This was because after becoming a rank 7 warrior, every step they took would greatly affect their future development. Every step they took was as if they were treading on thin ice, and they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Chuyu definitely had outstanding talent in this aspect. However, he actually broke through so casually on a broken mountain in the Beast Park. He could still clearly remember the shocking phenomenon in the sky and the terrifying commotion that came from the cave when they had just rushed over. This proved Chuyu's talent as a warrior, but it also made them more worried. Elder Bo Yen was almost certain that Chuyu wouldn't succeed. However, it had only been a short while, and he actually succeeded. Chuyu even killed a mythical beast with a single slash. If it was someone else, even if they broke through to rank 9, they might not be able to do it, let alone rank 8. Comparatively speaking, Elder Yu was the calmest of the three. He had been here the whole time and had almost witnessed the whole thing, so he was already mentally prepared. Of course, his ability to accept it was much higher than the other two. He took a deep breath and comforted her. Bo Yen, Wanjing, you can relax a little. Normally speaking, this is the most dangerous time. The origin power around a cultivator who has just broken through has a fatal attraction to these magical beasts. Under normal circumstances, they would have attacked by now. This was also a divine beast, and its explosive power and combat strength were extremely strong, even stronger than the golden cloud leopard. Of course, if it did not have the strength, it would not have dared to take this step. Hearing her words, the golden black demon wolf lowered its body slightly, revealing its sharp teeth, and let out a low growl from its throat. This was a sign that it was preparing to attack. Chu Luiyue laughed. Good, looks like you want to fight with me. As she spoke, she turned her gaze and looked at the other magical beasts around her. After a moment, she retracted her gaze. With a flick of her wrist, the light as a feather scarlet heaven sword drew a beautiful arc in the air and pointed at the golden black demon wolf from afar. Come! As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Luiyue pushed off with the tip of her foot and soared into the air. At the same time, the golden black demon wolf also flapped its wings and rose into the air. It went straight for Chu Luiyue. When the three elders who were watching from afar saw this, a trace of worry flashed across their faces. Golden black demon wolf. This is one of the strongest magical beasts in the Beast Park, and it is cunning and extremely difficult to deal with. Can Chuyu do it alone? Elder Wanjing could not help but ask. Elder Yu laughed bitterly. This is really hard to say. Chuyu being able to kill the golden cloud leopard with one strike was already quite unexpected. To be honest, I feel that her current strength should be much stronger than the average beginner level 8 stage. So this victory is really hard to say. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Because, in the air not far in front of them, the golden black demon wolf's true body and doppelganger were both pierced through. It hit the center of the eyebrows, a fatal blow. He didn't even have time to cry for help before he died. The one on the left was Scarlet Heaven's sword. As for the right, when Elder Yu saw it clearly, he couldn't help but gasp. It was actually a scabbard. The scabbard looked ordinary, and its entire body was round and blunt. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have been able to pierce through a golden black demon wolf's flesh. But, the truth was right in front of them. From the beginning to the end of this battle, Chuyu still only used one strike. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and called Scarlet Heaven's sword back. The moment the sword and scabbard were pulled out, the figure on the left disappeared instantly. The one on the right quickly fell down. A moment later, a muffled sound came from below. Clang! Scarlet Heaven's sword returned to its scabbard. What made Chu Liyue satisfied was that not only Scarlet Heaven's sword's body, but its scabbard also didn't have a single trace of blood on it. Other than an extremely faint smell of blood, it didn't look like she had just killed a divine beast. Her movements were smooth and her mood was relaxed. However, the other demonic beasts present, and even the three elders, were all in disarray. What's going on? A scabbard can also kill. And it's the real body. They didn't even see clearly when the scabbard appeared, and in the next second, it directly exploded the golden black demon wolf's head. Chu Yu's move, isn't it a little too abnormal? Countless gazes fell on Chu Liyue. She calmly adjusted her breath, then looked down and raised the corner of her lips. Anything else? In fact, her current state wasn't as good as it looked. Because using Scarlet Heaven's sword twice had taken a huge toll on her. The first time, it wasn't obvious. At that time, she had just broken through, and coincidentally, the steelback beast's cub was in danger. She was highly focused and didn't pay attention to anything else. But this time, she clearly felt that after she used the sword, a considerable portion of her strength and spirit had been consumed. If a person wanted to maintain the best battle state, it didn't only depend on the amount of force in the body, but also on spirit, willpower, and many other aspects. Just like now, Chu Liyue actually didn't inject any force into Scarlet Heaven's sword twice, and it was very light when she picked it up and put it down. But the price of using it wasn't small. After a short silence, some of the magical beasts began to retreat. And the divine beasts in the innermost area seemed to be wavering. Chu Liyue raised her sword and pointed downward. But before she could say anything, a familiar voice sounded in her ears. Chu Yu, wait. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Then you have to compensate our Chu Yu well. What happened today, if it wasn't for his own ability, perhaps. He couldn't bear to say the following words, but everyone present understood what he meant. Elder Bo Yen also smiled. Don't worry about that. Chu Yu has suffered a lot today, even if you don't say it, I won't mistreat him. As he spoke, he looked at Chu Yu. Chu Yu, this matter is indeed caused by my lack of consideration. Whatever you want, just say it, this old man will do his best to satisfy you. Chu Liyue blinked. This student doesn't want anything now. I wonder if I can keep it first and exchange it with you in the future. Elder Bo Yen naturally agreed. Everything is up to you. Chu Liyue smiled. Thank you, Elder Bo Yen. Why are you thanking him? Elder Wanjing stepped forward and grabbed Chu Liyue's wrist. If it wasn't for him, would you have suffered so much? He was really scared to death just now. Chu Liyue patted his hand comfortingly and smiled. Master, don't worry, aren't I fine now? Besides, if I didn't come here, I might not have broken through so quickly. Speaking of this, Elder Wanjing finally swept away his previous sorrow and became happy and excited. A Stage 8 warrior. In Lingxiao College, this level wasn't considered high, especially for the warriors. It was almost not even enough to enter the school. But Chu Yu is only 16 years old now. And he majored in celestial physician. Under such circumstances, he had successfully broken through to a Stage 8 warrior. How could he not be excited and proud? Needless to say, this kid had already silently broken through to become a level 9 mystic master. Elder Wanjing was still worried that his precious disciple would be abducted and was very concerned about the direction he wanted to focus on. But now, he suddenly thought it through. What was there to care about? His disciple was top-notch in all aspects, and as his master, he could only bask in his glory. Anyway, his disciple was his. In the future, not only would he be a celestial physician, but he might even be able to go to the mystic master and warrior side to show off to those old fellows. Elder Wanjing felt that it was worth it. It's all because you worked hard. Seeing that Elder Wanjing was finally appeased, Chu Luiyue turned around and asked, Elder Yu, even if I'm willing to reconcile, the mythical beasts below don't seem to have any intention of leaving. I'll talk to them. Elder Yu heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Chu Yu agreed, the rest would be easy. Actually, the remaining mythical beasts might not really want to continue fighting with Chu Yu, but as mythical beasts, they were very prideful. They had already forced themselves to the front, and if they left just like that, they would appear too cowardly. To be honest, if they really wanted to devour Chu Yu like before, they would have already attacked together just now. Chapter 1275. The night sky was dark and the mountain wind was silent. As the magical beasts retreated, the thick smell of blood and killing intent that filled the air seemed to have quietly dissipated. The surroundings quietened down and gradually returned to its original state. Elder Bo Yan's hanging heart finally settled down. This was indeed the best ending. Chu Liuyue's gaze swept across the dark forest, and there were ripples in the still water. Wait, Yu, what did you mean by that? Elder Wanjing suddenly reacted. You said that for the rest of the time. Does Chu Yu still want to continue staying here? Ah. Elder Yu was also stunned and subconsciously looked at Elder Bo Yan. But it was said that it would be a month. It has only been less than 10 days, I thought. No one said that Chu Yu would be allowed to go back from today onwards. He naturally thought that it would continue, that was why he said that. Bo Yan. Tell me. Is the punishment still going to continue? Elder Wanjing stared and asked. His precious disciple had almost died here. He did not believe that Bo Yan would have the face to let Chu Yu continue to stay here. Elder Bo Yan also had a headache. The reason he sent Chu Yu over was to teach him a lesson and grind down his temper, so that he wouldn't always be ignorant of the severity of the matter and boldly go out to cause trouble. But he did not expect that such a thing would happen. He had also seen the situation just now clearly. It was indeed a perilous situation. If not for Chu Yu's outstanding performance, they might not have been able to save him in such a short time. After this incident, the lesson and warning for Chu Yu should be enough. Leaving now was not a big deal. But, when he thought about how every time this kid made a mistake, they would give him all kinds of punishments, but it seemed to be useless. Elder Bo Yan felt an inexplicable grievance in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he finally spoke. Since he has already experienced this here, then. Let's just return. Student wants to continue staying here. Chu Luiyue suddenly opened his mouth and interrupted Elder Bo Yan's words. The three elders looked at him in shock. Disciple, what did you say? Elder Wanjing was shocked and hurriedly winked at him. This was such a good opportunity to leave this place in an honorable manner. Why was this child so stubborn? What's so good about staying here? You. Do you think it's not dangerous enough today? Chu Luiyue smiled. Master, today is a special day. It's all my fault for being careless and forgetting that I can't achieve a breakthrough in the Beast Park. That's why I've attracted so much trouble. I came here to receive my punishment. If I were to stay here for a few days and leave, it doesn't seem appropriate. Therefore, this student is willing to continue staying here until the last day of the 1-month period. His words were extremely sincere. Elder Wanjing originally wanted to say a few more words of advice, but after seeing the young man's resolute expression, he finally swallowed his words. He waved his hand and turned his head away. Up to you. No matter what, you have to come out in one piece, understand? Chu Luiyuan knew that he had a sharp tongue but a soft heart, so he smiled happily. Don't worry, master. I will definitely do as you say. Chu Luiyuan's words made Elder Bo Yen see her in a new light. Initially, he thought that Chu Yu would take this opportunity to leave directly. The beast park was dangerous. After today's incident, Chu Yu should be more aware of this fact. Under such circumstances, he still chose to stay. It was really rare. It was time to get to know this young man again, Elder Bo Yen thought to himself. All right. Since Chu Yu said so, we will continue according to our previous agreement. As long as you behave yourself during the remaining time, these magical beasts should not deliberately make things difficult for you. After all, with the lesson learned from the previous incident, anyone who wanted to deal with Chu Yu would have to think twice. Chu Luiyuan nodded her head. Thank you, Elder Bo Yen. Elder Yu Yu, who was at the side, suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. He stared at Chu Luiyuan closely, and his eyes were filled with questions. Wait, Chu Yu, how do you know that I can't achieve a breakthrough in the Beast Park? After he finished speaking, the few of them quieted down. When the three elders met, they had already expressed that they did not tell Chu Yu about this matter. But just now, he said that he had forgotten. Other than the elders in charge of patrolling here, almost no one else knows about this, but you already knew. One could not blame Elder Yu Yu for being suspicious, but this matter was indeed strange. Because very few people knew about this, and even fewer people knew that Chu Yu was imprisoned here at the same time. How did Chu Yu know about this? Under the scrutinizing gaze of the three elders, Chu Luiyuan's expression did not change and he chuckled. It was Senior Rong Xiao who told me. Elder Bo Yen frowned slightly. He did not know that you were imprisoned here. In actual fact, he and Elder Wanjing had discussed and decided on this matter together. Before that, Rong Xiao had already gone to another place to receive his own punishment. Ouyang and Shang Yusin knew about this because he had mentioned it on Thousand Wine Mountain. But Rong Xiao definitely did not. Chu Luiyuan paused for a moment before she smiled deeply and said, You're right. Before I came to the academy, Senior Rong Xiao specially told me about this. The three of them looked at each other. This explanation seemed to make sense. After all, Rong Xiao had even taught him how to open the academy's barrier. What else could he not say? In that case, it was quite normal for Chu Yu to know about this. He has been teaching you all sorts of nonsense. Elder Wanjing snorted coldly. He did not teach the good things, but he did teach all the bad things. Ordinary students were not allowed to enter the Beast Park, but Rong Xiao had already told them about this. Could it be that he had already predicted that Chu Yu would come here? Forget it. It's good that you know, but you must not be careless in the future. Elder Bo Yen reminded. It's getting late, we should go back first. Chu Luiyuan bowed respectfully. Elder, take care. Master, take care. After dealing with these matters, Chu Luiyuan returned to the mountain peak where she was previously. Halfway up the mountain, Chiong was still guarding there. When she saw Chu Luiyuan return, the last trace of worry in her eyes finally dissipated. Chu Luiyuan walked over. All right, those troubles have been solved. Let's go back first, I'll take a good look at it. Chiong nodded, rubbed the steel spine beast cub lying on the ground lovingly, and then brought it into the cave. After walking in, Chu Luiyuan helped it to do a detailed examination. Don't worry, most of its flesh wounds will be fine after a period of recuperation. Chu Luiyuan had to rejoice that the steel spine beast's physical strength was so strong that it could still hang on to its last breath even after being injured like this. She touched the steel spine beast cub's head. This time, I owe you and your mother, and I will definitely repay it 100 times in the future. Let me give you a name. Let's call you Tao Tao. I hope that in the future, you can always be as naive and naughty as you are now, healthy and worry-free. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1276. Tao Tao rolled his big eyes, and it seemed that he was quite satisfied with the name. In fact, at the beginning, he was jealous and resentful of Chu Luiyue, especially when he was in a desperate situation and constantly sent signals for help to his mother, but he never got a response. He and his mother depended on each other. From the beginning of his memory, his mother had always treated him very well. He often made trouble outside, and his mother always protected him and didn't let any animals bully him. But when this person came, everything suddenly changed. He found that in his mother's heart, this person was more important than him. When he thought that he was going to die, this kind of emotion reached the peak. But she saved him. And her eyes were full of guilt and apology. Tao Tao suddenly felt that he couldn't be angry anymore. Especially the smell of her body was very good, which made him want to get close to her unconsciously. Yes, he wanted to get close to her at the beginning. But it was a pity that she seemed to misunderstand. His mother also kicked him several times for this. Tao Tao glanced at his mother, thinking of her despair and sadness when she ran towards him, and suddenly he was relieved. He closed his eyes and rubbed gently in Chu Luiyue's palm. Chu Luiyue felt warm in her heart. She went to the side, took out the medicine tripod and herbs, and began to prepare to refine medicine. Boom! A ball of crimson flame burned fiercely in the medicinal cauldron. The big cave was lit up. A lot of herbs were thrown in by Chu Luiyue in an orderly way. A strong smell of medicine with a bit of bitterness gradually spread. Chu Luiyue looked at the rising flame in the medicine tripod and the medicine soup that gradually merged together, and then she exhaled gently. She had to say, it was really cool after breaking through to the 8th stage. Her vigilance to the surroundings improved a lot, and her whole body seemed to have been baptized, light and free. Even when she was refining medicine, she felt a lot easier. This breakthrough finally digested the force that she had robbed from Taizu in the North Sea. But in addition, there was actually more power stored in the water droplets. Those things would only appear when he made a breakthrough in the future. Chu Luiyue even felt lucky that she broke through in the beast park this time. Although many evil beasts besieged her, it was scary but not dangerous. Most importantly, the only people who had witnessed her breakthrough were those few elders. Ordinary practitioners would never have such a movement when they broke through to the 8th stage. The more people knew it, the more difficult it was for her to hide her identity. She didn't have to worry about these people. But if she wanted to break through in the future, she was afraid that she had to prepare in advance. After her abilities increased, Chu Luiyue's refining speed became much faster. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1277. The night passed quickly. When the morning sun shone into the cave, Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. After a night's rest, her body had basically recovered to the best state. She stood up and stretched her muscles and bones. She could clearly feel that her body was much stronger than before. The vigorous force was running in her limbs and bones. She felt extremely comfortable. This was the feeling of becoming stronger. Chu Luiyue smiled in a good mood. She really didn't know how she would feel when she returned to the 9th level of warrior. There was a slight sound next to her. Chu Luiyue turned her head and saw that Tao Tao had also woken up. At this time, Tao Tao was blinking his eyes and looking at her. Tao Tao was lying on the ground. He was tightly bandaged. He looked like a big patched ball. Chu Luiyue blinked at him. Tao Tao seemed to be caught doing something bad in an instant. He closed his eyes guiltily. Chu Luiyue almost laughed out. At this time, Cheong also woke up. He rubbed Tao Tao's head helplessly and dotingly. Cheong, Tao Tao, I'll go out. Chu Luiyue said. Cheong raised his eyes and looked over. Even Tao Tao opened one of his eyes. It was a pity that Tao Tao's eyes were as big as a lantern. Although he tried his best to open a slit, it was still very obvious. Chu Luiyue had to pretend that she didn't see it. She explained to Cheong, I didn't have time to tell you before. I was punished here because I did something wrong. The punishment is 1 month. Since I'm here, it's not appropriate to stay here all the time. I have to go out. What do you think? In fact, Cheong didn't agree very much. There was a trace of worry in his eyes. After the battle yesterday, Chu Luiyue was now in a delicate balance with those evil beasts in the beast park. If she went out now, it was still a little dangerous. Cheong stood up. It seemed that he was going to go with her. Chu Luiyue shook her head. Cheong, I can go by myself. You stay here and take good care of Tao Tao. After the patrol, I'll come back naturally. Seeing that it was still worried, Chu Luiyue waved the Scarlet Heaven sword in his hand and smiled. They couldn't do anything to me yesterday, so they won't do anything to me today. Looking at the Scarlet Heaven sword, Cheong subconsciously took half a step back. Only then did it relax and nod at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue put away Scarlet Heaven sword and walked outside. The Beast Park occupied an extremely large area with dozens of lofty and steep mountain peaks. The forest was lush and dense. When the breeze blew, the pines rustled. It was early in the morning, and the white fog in the middle of the mountain had yet to disperse, surging with the wind. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. The cool air was refreshing, and it seemed to make him feel much more refreshed. She looked around her surroundings as far as she could. Where is the golden black demon wolf's cave? She asked in her heart. After a while, the three-eyed eagle's voice rang out. Southeast, behind 3 mountains. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction and saw an extremely steep mountain peak. With a tap of her foot, she soared into the air and headed straight there. Why are you going there? The three-eyed eagle couldn't help but ask. Yesterday, before Chu Luiyue went to rest, she specifically asked if it could find the location of the corresponding demon beast through its aura. After it gave an affirmative answer, Chu Luiyue didn't say anything else. In the end, she wanted to go there early in the morning. There's only one golden black demon wolf in this entire beast park, and you killed it yesterday. Why are you going to its cave? Chu Luiyue's thin lips curled up slightly. The golden black demon wolf is a divine beast, and there are many good things in its cave. If I don't go there, won't others benefit from it? Of course, it should be said that other beasts benefit. The three-eyed eagle couldn't refute this reason, so it tactfully shut its mouth. After Chu Luiyue broke through to the 8th level, her speed nearly doubled. This allowed her to reach the mountain peak where the golden black demon wolf's cave was located in 15 minutes. Suspended in mid-air, she saw the cave halfway up the mountain. Compared to Cheong's cave, this one was about half as small. However, as the golden black demon wolf's strength and level were considered one of the best here, Chu Luiyue didn't need to think to know that there must be many good things hidden inside. However, just as she was about to go over, she suddenly heard the three-eyed eagle's low voice. Wait! There's another demon beast in there. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and smiled. Looks like I'm not the only one who has eyes on this treasure. She crossed her arms and stared at that place with a lazy expression. She murmured with a faint smile, "Can you find out what kind of demon it is?" The three-eyed eagle paused. The silver-eared piebald beast is also a divine beast. It's cunning but timid. Usually, it likes to do sneaky things. It doesn't have a good reputation among the divine beasts. Its strength is far inferior to the golden black demon wolf's. Ha, I think it's very bold. It even dares to take my things. Chu Luiyue said slowly. In the Beast Park, there was an unwritten rule: if one party was killed by the other, then everything of the party, including the territory, would belong to the other party. Chu Luiyue killed the golden black demon wolf yesterday. Everything in this cave should belong to her. Moreover, she killed it in front of so many demon beasts. The news should have spread here long ago. There wouldn't be any demon beast that didn't know about this. This was also why she didn't rush over immediately after the incident yesterday. Looks like in these few years, this place has been much more chaotic than before. Chu Luiyue tucked her fringe behind her ear and smiled faintly. If it was in the past, everyone would be well behaved. Why would they do such a thing? What do you plan to do? The legendary three-eyed eagle asked. It didn't know why, but from Chu Luiyue's words, it faintly sensed a trace of inexplicable impulse. She seemed to have made up her mind. Chu Luiyue smiled lazily. What else can I do? Naturally, I'll teach them not to break the rules. At this moment, a figure walked out of the cave. It was a demon beast that looked like a lion or a tiger. Its pointy ears were silver in color and its body was covered with crisscrossing flower spots. It seemed to be biting something in its mouth. It stuck its head out and looked around, intending to escape quickly. How many times has it been? A clear voice with a hint of laziness could be heard. The silver-eared spotted beast was shocked and hurriedly looked up. When it saw that the person was Chu Luiyue, it was so shocked that it took a few steps back. Chu Luiyue tilted her head and glanced at the thing in its mouth. It was a piece of dark gold stone about the size of a fist. Under the sunlight, it emitted a faint glow. Dark gold condensed stone. This was a treasure that could only be found in the habitat of the golden black demon wolf. It was incomparably hard and contained an extremely rich energy. It was very precious. The silver-eared spotted beast only hesitated for a moment before it spat out the dark gold condensed stone in its mouth. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and smiled. Don't you think it's too late to regret now? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1278. Panic flashed across the eyes of the silver-eared piebald beast. Of course, it knew that what it did was taboo. It was understandable that the other party would be angry. But, it had waited here for a whole night and did not see Chu Luiyue. It thought that she did not know the rules of the Beast Park and wanted to take advantage of the situation. Who knew that she would come just as it started to move? It let out a low whimper and shook off some small pieces from its body. After it cleaned up its body, it retreated and bowed its head. It was begging for mercy. Unfortunately, this trick was useless against Chu Luiyue. If you have such awareness, why didn't you do it earlier? Chu Luiyue's words made the silver-eared piebald beast even more nervous. It was also present when the golden black demonic wolf was killed yesterday. It had clearly seen the scene at that time. It was not as powerful as the golden black demonic wolf. If the other party was determined to kill it, wouldn't it be dead meat? The silver-eared piebald beast took another step back with its tail between its legs. It looked panicked and scared. Only that pair of eyes were rolling around, as if they were planning something. Swoosh! At this moment, Chu Luiyue suddenly moved. She was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she was in front of the silver-eared piebald beast. After all, the silver-eared piebald beast was a mythical beast. It had sharp reflexes. It turned around and wanted to escape immediately. If you don't want to be stabbed in the heart, stay there obediently. Chu Luiyue shouted, causing the silver-eared piebald beast to stop abruptly. It hurriedly glanced and saw Chu Luiyue holding the red cloud sword in her hand. It looked like she was going to attack at any time. Buzz! The sound of the sword rang. The silver-eared piebald beast was frightened. In the end, it did not run away and lay on the ground obediently. Chu Luiyue landed and walked toward it. Thud. Thud. The rhythmic footsteps sounded like they were stepping on the beast's heart. The sharp tip of the sword glinted coldly. Clang. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and pointed the sword at the silver-eared piebald beast. The distance was less than an inch. As long as he moved forward a little more, she could easily assassinate him. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. You have been in the beast park for so long. Do you need me to tell you this? Chu Luiyue spoke casually, but the silver-ear spotted beast was almost scared out of its wits. It looked at Chu Luiyue pleadingly. Chu Luiyue looked at it calmly and attacked without hesitation. Chi! The 2 ears of the white-ear-spotted beast were cut off by her. Woo! The sudden pain caused the silver-eared piebald beast to let out a mournful cry. Their ears were very important to them. If they were cut off, their hearing would be greatly affected, and their battle prowess would be greatly reduced. To them, having their ears cut off was an extremely severe punishment. It could even be said to be a humiliation. But at this moment, how could the silver-eared piebald beast, who had just managed to survive, have the mood to care about these things? Since this is your first offense, I'll give you a small punishment this time. If there is a next time. Chu Luiyue glanced at it indifferently. The silver-eared piebald beast did not care about its bleeding ears and hurriedly shook its head. There won't be a next time. There won't be a next time. Chu Luiyue then kept her sword. Get lost. With a command, the silver-eared piebald beast hurriedly ran away and disappeared completely in a short while. You actually didn't kill it. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice carried a trace of surprise. Chu Luiyue sheathed her sword. It's not worth me using Red Cloud's sword. Using it once would consume a lot of energy. A silver-eared piebald beast was not worth it. From the beginning, she only wanted to use Red Cloud's sword for show. Moreover, if it returns alive, the news will spread. Chu Luiyue touched her chin. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Why not? She had already killed 2 of them. It was basically enough. As for the rest, as long as she put in more effort, it would be enough to deter them. Then, Chu Luiyue walked over and kept the black gold condensed stone on the ground. She then walked into the cave. The cave was average in width, but extremely narrow. After Chu Luiyue walked for a long distance, she finally saw the end. A large piece of black gold condensed stone was quietly entrenched in the deepest part of the cave. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. This was more than she had imagined. She quickly walked over and saw that some of the edges had been bitten off. Fortunately, it did not affect the whole thing much. This black gold condensed stone is at least 100 years old. The power it contains is extremely rich. It's suitable for that steelback beast cub. The legendary three-eyed eagle said. Chu Luiyue nodded. Actually, she thought so too. With such a large piece, it should be enough for it to recover its strength as soon as possible. If it went well, it might even break through and become a divine beast in advance. Without another word, Chu Luiyue kept the black gold condensed stone. Then, she searched around and found some things one after another. Most of them were things that the black gold demonic wolf had obtained when it was alive. There were some divine beast bones, some medicinal herbs, and some random jade stones. Chu Luiyue ransacked most of the place before she finally finished and turned to leave. Walking out of the cave, Chu Luiyue paused for a moment, then flew in another direction. After a while, the legendary three-eyed eagle realized that she did not seem to be going back. Where are you going? The legendary three-eyed eagle already had a guess in its mind. Chu Luiyue raised an eyebrow. Don't forget, I killed a golden cloud panther yesterday. Of course, she was going to take the things over there as well. As expected. The legendary three-eyed eagle immediately understood. Then, it asked, you know where the golden cloud panther's nest is? She did not seem to have asked it just now. Chu Liuyue's red lips curled up slightly. Of course. She had been there more than once. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1279. The legendary three-eyed eagle quickly realized that things were more complicated than it had imagined. Because, it realized that Chu Luyue seemed to be very familiar with the terrain here, as if she had been here many times before. She was familiar with the path and accurately headed towards the nest of the golden cloud leopard. The closer she got, the stronger the aura of the golden cloud leopard. This made the legendary three-eyed eagle believe what she said just now. She really knew the location. After the incident between Chu Luyue and the adult steel spine beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle had roughly guessed that Chu Luyue had indeed been here before. But wasn't she too familiar with this place? The terrain between the mountains was extremely complicated, and one could get lost if they were not careful. Most importantly, most of these mountains had been occupied by various mythical beasts, becoming their base. Chu Luyue sometimes had to avoid offending the other party, so she had to choose to pass through from other positions. But this seemed to be very easy for her. She clearly knew the location of every mountain and every river here. The legendary three-eyed eagle even suspected that she even knew what the mythical beasts on every mountain here were. After about an hour, Chu Luyue finally arrived in front of a mountain. This was a very steep mountain, and the top seemed to have been shaved off by something. It was flat and flat, revealing the grayish-white rocks. There were not many trees on it, and most of them were rocks. This was the favorite terrain of the golden cloud leopard. They liked to run back and forth on such steep cliffs, and because of this, they had trained their amazing climbing ability and explosive power. Of course, there was no point in talking about this now. Probably because the news of the silver-ear-spotted beast's injury had already spread, so when Chu Luyue came this time, there were no mythical beasts around who wanted to take advantage of the situation. After sweeping the cliff clean, Chu Luyue clapped her hands in high spirits and looked around. Where should I start? The legendary three-eyed eagle asked curiously. What? Nothing. I just feel that there are still more than 20 days here. If I just cultivate in the cave, it will be really boring, so I want to find a few mythical beasts to spar with. Chu Luyue laughed. Of course, the kind that doesn't use the scarlet cloud sword. She touched her chin, pondered for a moment, and said thoughtfully. I remember that among the mythical beasts that were about to besiege me yesterday, there were a few that lived nearby. Oh, let's start with Mo Tianke. Mo Tianke was a 9th-ranked demonic beast, but it had a fierce temperament and was extremely belligerent. In addition, it had the bloodline of the Vermilion Bird clan in its body, so its status was not low. In the beast park where there were many godly beasts, it had a place for itself. When Chu Luyue was on the mountain, she was on the lookout at the top of the mountain. In the blink of an eye, they gathered into a dark mass and faced Chu Luyue from afar as if they were facing a formidable enemy, calm. I won't use my sword today. You can send any one of you to fight with me. Let's stop when it's appropriate and not endanger each other's lives. How about it? Seeing that Chu Luyue was so friendly, the mythical beasts chattered for a while. Finally, one of them flew out. The mythical beasts were not big. They were only the size of a palm. However, if anyone underestimated them, they would pay a high price. Chu Luyue's mind moved. She instantly mobilized her force and surrounded her body. Swoosh! That mythical beast attacked first. Good! Hollered Chu Luyue, and her body flew out like an arrow. A human and a mythical beast fought in close quarters. This kid is quite quiet today. Elder Yu, who was patrolling the edge of the mythical beast garden, muttered to himself. Seems like he has learned his lesson. No matter how stubborn he was, he should have calmed down after yesterday's thrilling battle. Today, these mythical beasts seemed to have quietened down. Even their daily roars could not be heard. They should be afraid of Chu Yu's sword. Elder Yu did not take this to heart. In fact, they had been letting the mythical beasts roam freely in the mythical beast garden. These mythical beasts were all intelligent. Without the intervention of others, they would form a balance on their own. All parties were fighting for supremacy and restricting each other. Now, there was only one more person, Chu Yu. Anyway, as long as he stayed here, these mythical beasts would not look for his Mafa mythical beasts. When the 1-month time limit was up, Chu Yu would be able to leave safely. Elder Yu rubbed his forehead as he thought about this. From yesterday until now, his mind had been in a state of high tension. It was only now that he was finally willing to relax a little. A sense of exhaustion and sleepiness instantly surged up. It was time to take a rest. Elder Yu checked the Xian formation in the area he was in charge of again. Then, he went back to sleep. Time passed by slowly. An hour later, Chu Luyue walked out of Mo Tiang's mountain. Her clothes were torn in a few places and looked a little messy. But fortunately, she was not injured. She took a deep breath and looked back. Touching her universe ring, she revealed a satisfied smile. I didn't expect Mo Tian to be so good at collecting treasures. In the distance, the few Mo Tian that finally managed to get Chu Luyue to leave finally heaved a sigh of relief. She finally left. They thought that she was easy to bully, but who knew that she was a plague? Overbearing and unreasonable. He even almost emptied their homes. See you later. Chu Luyue waved at them happily. The few Mo heavenly sparrows scattered with a whoosh. See you. See what? Have a good trip home. One of the Mo Tian fell behind and flew away limping. From afar, half of the feathers on its wing were gone. It was the one that had sparred with Chu Luyue just now. Chu Luyue shrugged regretfully. You're still as boring as before. The legendary three-eyed eagle was speechless. You beat him up like that and stole his things. In the end, you still have the nerve to say that this is fun. Chu Luyue kicked away a rock beside her feet and walked forward. Let's call it a day. The legendary three-eyed eagle's heart skipped a beat. Even if it was indifferent to other things, it was still a little shocked at this time. Call it a day. Do you plan to come again tomorrow? Nope. Chu Luyue shook her head. The legendary three-eyed eagle heaved a sigh of relief, but then it heard Chu Luyue say again. I've taken everything here, and I've taken revenge for the siege that day. There's no point in coming again. We'll change places tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1280. The legendary three-eyed eagle was speechless. There were so many beasts that attacked you yesterday. Are you going to challenge every single one of them? Of course not. Chu Luyue explained patiently as she walked forward. Actually, I was in the wrong in the first place. I shouldn't have chosen to break through here at this time. Furthermore, I broke through to the 8th level. This is a huge temptation to the beasts in the Beast Park. It's normal for them to go there. However, during the battle yesterday, I gave them an ultimatum. I also gave them time to regret and retreat. It's a pity that not all beasts are so tactful. Chu Luyue thought for a while and counted with her fingers. Yesterday, Other than the golden black demonic wolf that took the initiative to step forward, there are a total of 13 godly beasts and 7 ninth-grade beasts that stayed at their original positions. If they didn't retreat, it would be considered a challenge. Let me think, there are a total of 20 of them. Then I'll take one a day. I should be able to understand all of them before I leave. The legendary three-eyed eagle was really shocked. It didn't expect Chu Luiyue to be able to remember all these when she was in such a dangerous situation. Of course, with her photographic memory, this book wasn't difficult. It was just a matter of looking at it a little longer. But, do you really intend to challenge all of them? The legendary three-eyed eagle was in disbelief. You were able to win today because Mo Tianke is only a 9th grade beast with limited combat power. However, if you really face those godly beasts and don't use Red Cloud Sword, I'm afraid you won't have much of a chance of winning. Chu Luiyue wasn't angry because the legendary three-eyed eagle didn't have a good impression of her. On the contrary, she was very happy. Because she knew that the legendary three-eyed eagle was really thinking for her. I didn't say that I must win. Chu Luiyue's expression became more serious. These godly beasts are of different species, but they are all very powerful and have their own merits. If I can have a good fight with them, I will definitely benefit greatly. One had to know that the beasts in the beast park were all wild and bloodthirsty beasts. They were different from the beasts that had formed contracts with humans. How could Chu Luiyue not know that such a battle would be more bloody and cruel? However, this was the only way to increase her combat power faster and more directly. Ever since she entered this place, Debao hadn't come. Without the daily abuse, she still felt empty in her heart. Chu Luiyue sighed. She had been led astray by Debao. I see. The legendary three-eyed eagle's words. It had to be said that this was indeed a bold and crazy move. But if she could really persevere, Chu Luiyue's abilities would definitely increase greatly. Moreover, she had just broken through to the 8th rank, and it was time for her to polish herself. Actually, you don't have to worry. If I really can't win, I can still ask for help. Elder Yu and the others reacted very quickly. But for now, let's keep a low profile. Otherwise, you'll be criticized again. Chu Luiyue was very careful about this. Even when she sparred with Mo Tianke, she deliberately chose a more remote place and ended the battle quickly before it caused a commotion. Aren't you afraid that these beasts will leak the news? A mysterious smile appeared on Chu Luiyue's face. Which beast do you think is willing to take the initiative to tell others that they have lost? Especially these beasts in the beast park. Anyone with a bit of temper and backbone wouldn't do such a thing. Therefore, no matter what the result was, they could only accept it silently. The legendary three-eyed eagle. You planned this long ago. She beat them up and snatched their things. In the end, she didn't even give them a chance to complain, she was simply beating them to death. Chu Luiyue said very modestly, not at all. No, I didn't know that I would be sent here, did I? In the end, I just borrowed some experience from my predecessors. There's nothing to praise. The legendary three-eyed eagle. When did it praise her? Suddenly, a trace of doubt flashed through its mind. There shouldn't be many people who can do such a thing. Your experience. Who exactly did you borrow from? Chu Luiyue waved her hand coolly. Sigh, I did it myself. Why did she say that she had already gained experience in doing this? The legendary three-eyed eagle had been following her all this time and basically understood some of her secrets. Therefore, Chu Luiyue didn't deliberately hide this matter. But I really didn't do it on purpose in the past. At that time, a few divine beasts bullied Ah Cheong and dragged me into it. They chased after me and beat me up. What could I do? Chu Luiyue sighed. Thinking of the years back then, she couldn't help but feel sad. I had no choice but to deal with them. The legendary three-eyed eagle. Originally, I came here with the intention of staying well. Who knew that such a thing would happen? They had already bullied me. If I didn't resist, wouldn't it be too aggrieved? Chu Luiyue said seriously. But it's not good to offend too many, so I only chose those who didn't leave at that time. In this way, even if she was found out one day, she could justifiably defend herself. The legendary three-eyed eagle silently mourned for the many evil beasts in the beast park for 3 seconds in its heart. It was better to offend the natural enemy than to offend Chu Luiyue. After returning, Chu Luiyue saw Ah Cheong standing at the entrance of the cave waiting for her before she walked halfway up the mountain. Seeing her smiling face, it seemed that everything went well. Ah Cheong's heart settled down. Chapter 1281. In the days that followed, Chu Luiyue lived a very regular life. Every day during the day, she would find a magical beast to spar with. If she won, she would eat and take the other party's belongings. If she lost, she would fight again and again. If she couldn't win, she would run. Thanks to the fact that she had broken through to the 8th rank, her speed was quite fast when she was escaping. Occasionally, when she was forced to retreat, she would teleport. The other party chased after her and ran back, but with Ah Cheong holding the fort, they could only return resentfully. All in all, Chu Luiyue had a very smooth time, and after a series of tough battles, her combat strength was soaring rapidly. And all of this, Elder Yu Yu and the others did not notice. In the end, it was safe and sound. Immortal Water Mausoleum. Jiang Ji-won rushed all the way back and finally arrived at the fastest speed. Outside the Jiang residence, the guards in charge of guarding saw Jiang Ji-won return from afar and were all shocked. They looked at each other and hurriedly came up to greet her. "Eldest young miss. Why didn't you inform us in advance that you were coming back? We could have gone to pick you up." Jiang Ji-won did not stop and went straight into the residence. "Where's father?" Seeing her in a hurry and travel-worn, it seemed like she had something urgent to deal with. The guards did not dare to delay and hurriedly said, "The patriarch is in the residence." Hearing this, Jiang Ji-won felt a little relieved and rushed over at an even faster speed. "Eldest young miss is back." One of the guards hurriedly jogged to catch up, while the other ran even faster and went to the front to report. Soon, the news spread throughout the Jiang residence. Jiang Ji-won's status was noble. When they heard that she had returned, many people in the residence hurriedly came out to welcome her. In the past, Jiang Ji-won would still put on an act, but today, she was not in the mood. She did not even spare these people a glance and went straight to Jiang Hetian's courtyard. She blew past like a gust of wind, leaving everyone confused. What happened to eldest young miss? Why is her face so ugly? I've never seen young mistress like this before. It's as if her entire body is covered in ice. In the past, young mistress would greet us cheerfully whenever she saw us. Today, I don't think she did it on purpose. Look at how anxious she is. Perhaps she really has something urgent. Forget it. This isn't something we can discuss. Let's disperse." Jiang Ziyuan didn't pay attention to these words and walked straight ahead. As soon as he reached the gate of the courtyard, Jiang Hetian, who had heard the news, came out. His face, which had been full of joy and happiness, instantly froze when he saw Jiang Ji-won's cold and anxious expression. "Father." Seeing Jiang Hetian, Jiang Ji-won finally felt relieved and could not help calling out to him. Jiang Hetian's heart sank, and he hurried forward. "Ziyuan, what happened to you?" For so many years, Jiang Ji-won had always been decent and generous in his eyes. He was proud of her. He had never seen her so haggard and anxious. Although her clothes were luxurious and her hair was exquisite, it still could not hide the fatigue on her face. Vaguely, there was even a hint of embarrassment. "Father," Jiang Ji-won was just about to speak when she remembered that there were still some people around, so she hesitated. Jiang Hitian understood tacitly. "If there's anything, let's go inside. You can tell father slowly." With that, the two of them walked back into the house, leaving the confused crowd outside. "Ziyuan, what's wrong?" As soon as they entered the house, Jiang Hitian could not help but ask worriedly. Jiang Ji-won took a deep breath and asked, "Father, why didn't you reply to my letter?" "Reply? What letter?" Jiang Hitian asked in surprise. Seeing him like this, Jiang Ji-won immediately understood something. "You didn't receive my letter. I specifically placed it in the 1,000-device bird's body and sent it back." Jiang Hitian shook his head. "I've been in the immortal water mausoleum all this time, but I really didn't receive any news from you." Jiang Ji-won gritted her teeth. "As expected. Father, I wrote you a letter before, but it must have been intercepted. That's why you didn't receive it." No wonder. No wonder she waited for so long, but there was no reply from father. So there was a problem. "What's the matter that made you so anxious? Also, there shouldn't be many people who would dare to intercept your letter. Who could it be?" Jiang Ji-won shook her head. "I don't know either." Although it was a long journey from the academy to the immortal water mausoleum, there had never been an accident when she sent letters before. This time, someone must have done it on purpose. It was just that they would not be able to find out in such a short time. "We can investigate this matter later. I came back this time because I have something I need your help with." Jiang Ziyuan paused for a moment. After sorting out her thoughts, she briefly recounted what had happened in the academy recently. After hearing this, Jiang Hitian frowned. "So, you suspect that there's something wrong with that Chu Yu's identity?" "Yes. Rong Xiu's attitude toward him is really unusual, which makes people suspicious." Jiang Ji-won bit her lip. He also has a red-tailed phoenix like Shangguan Yu. This is too much of a coincidence." Jiang Hitian asked, "You're guessing that Chu Yu is from Shangguan Yu?" Jiang Ji-won nodded hesitantly. Jiang Hitian fell silent. He paced back and forth in the room with his hands behind his back. After a long while, he said, "Your suspicion is not impossible, but there's no news from the Yuntian Tower that the princess consort has left. With Shangguan Yu's current status, it was impossible for her to go anywhere quietly. Ever since she was chosen as the princess consort, she had been staying in the Yuntian Tower. Why would she appear in Lingshao College, which was thousands of miles away?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. In a twinkling of an eye, it was the last day when Chu Luiyue was kept in the Beast Park. Early in the morning, Chu Luiyue got up. She swallowed the force and adjusted her breath. After letting the force run for a big circle in her body, she opened her eyes again and exhaled a long breath of foul air. She felt refreshed. She had to admit that she had a very comfortable time in the Beast Park in the past month. After all, not everyone could have the opportunity to fight with so many powerful monsters. At this moment, a familiar voice came from outside. "Chu Yu. You can go out today." It was Elder Yu Yu who called her outside. Ah Cheong and Tao Tao both looked over. Chu Luiyue stood up and tidied up her clothes. Then she smiled at them. "I'm leaving today." There was a trace of reluctance in Ah Cheong's eyes. Tao Tao hesitated for a long time. Then he stood up and walked to the door of the cave. He sat down with resistance all over his body. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Tao Tao, you don't want me to leave, do you?" Tao Tao turned his head and refused to speak. He was so stubborn. Chu Luiyue felt warm in her heart. In fact, after getting along with each other during this period, she and Tao Tao had been much closer. She was also very reluctant to leave Tao Tao. Don't worry. I'll still be in the school later. I'll come to see you when I have the chance. Chu Yu. Elder Yu Yu saw that she hadn't come out yet, so he urged her. Chu Luiyue walked over and patted Ah Cheong and Tao Tao. Tao Tao made way for her obediently. He looked down at Chu Luiyue with grievance. Patter. A teardrop the size of a fist fell and landed on Chu Luiyue's hand. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Iwa. Not to mention anything else, just based on the situation on the night when he was about to break through to the 8th rank, it definitely had nothing to do with these 2 words. Don't you think so? The Beast Park has become much quieter recently. Chu Luiyue asked. Elder Yu Yu thought for a while and hesitated. It seems, a little, in the past, when he was patrolling, he would occasionally hear the roars and cries of some demonic beasts, but it did seem to be much lesser recently. It's probably because the incident that night was too big, Elder Yu Yu said with uncertainty. Chu Luiyue didn't expose him, but nodded in agreement. Elder Yu Yu's words make sense. In that case, I'm still quite lucky. As they spoke, the 2 of them had already arrived in front of the Xian Formation. Through the translucent Xian Formation, Chu Luiyue already saw 2 familiar figures. Elder Yu Yu raised his hand, and a crack appeared in the middle of the Xian Formation. Disciple. Elder Wanjing couldn't hide his excitement as he shouted. Come out quickly. Let Master take a good look. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed as he stepped out. Elder Wanjing took 2 steps forward and looked at her carefully. After confirming that she was really fine, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Luiyue smiled and comforted him. Master, don't worry, I'm doing very well. You've been suffering in there, how good can you be? Seeing her smiling face, Elder Wanjing's heart ached even more. Don't worry. From today onwards, we won't come to this place anymore. A rare look of hesitation flashed across Chu Luiyue's face. This. Master, actually this place is really quite good. She was living quite happily, and had even picked up quite a few good things. Seeing her like this, Elder Wanjing only thought that she didn't want to refute Bo Yan, so he didn't say much, and only patted her arm. Good disciple. To be able to stay safely in the Beast Park for a month and even make a big breakthrough, who wouldn't be envious of him, Wanjing, for having such a good disciple? Chu Luiyue saw that he had already confirmed many things, and it wasn't easy to explain, so she could only let him be. You've done well this time. Elder Bo Yan stood at the side, and after sizing up Chu Luiyue, he nodded his head approvingly. You've become much more mature and sensible. It seems that it was right to send Chu Yu here this time. Remember this lesson, and don't do it again in the future. Chu Luiyue replied seriously. Thank you for your teachings, Elder Bo Yan. I've indeed benefited a lot this time. Wasn't it refreshing to fight with so many 9th grade magical beasts and even divine beasts one by one? Sigh, what a pity, I don't know when I'll have such an opportunity again. Elder Bo Yan's admiration for Chu Luiyue increased by a few notches. Good, good, good. It's great that you can think this way. As he spoke, he sighed. If only Jun Juqing could think the same way as you. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1284. Chu Luiyue suddenly looked up. Sensing her reaction, Elder Wanjing asked curiously. Disciple, what's wrong? Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and smiled. Nothing, I'm just curious. The person that Elder Bo Yen mentioned, could it be? Has he received the same punishment as me? Elder Bo Yen shook his head. That's not it. It's just that he has also done something wrong, so he received the corresponding punishment. But from the beginning to the end, his attitude has been very stubborn, unlike you. Not only was he stubborn, he simply wouldn't change. In this aspect, he was exactly the same as his master. Perhaps it was because he had long seen through this trait of Jun Juqing's that he had always been so protective of him. Forget it, it's all in the past, let's not talk about it. Elder Bo Yen directly ended the topic. Chu Liuyue's lips moved slightly, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Elder Bo Yen and Elder Bo Yen personally sent Chu Liyue back to Mount Zhuheng. After a lot of things had happened during this period of time, they had already habitually placed Chu Liyue and Rongxiu together. Therefore, they naturally sent her back here. After Elder Bo Yen said a few more words, he left, giving the master and disciple some space to talk in private. The moment his figure disappeared, Elder Wanzheng looked at Chu Liyue. Disciple, do you know Jun Juqing? Chu Liyue smiled. I don't know him. Why did master suddenly ask about this? Elder Wanzheng stared at her and shook his head. You don't have to lie to master. When you mentioned him, your expression was obviously a little strange. You must know him, or at least have heard of him, right? The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Chu Liyue sighed in her heart. It was also because Elder Bo Yen mentioned it too suddenly that she was too shocked and couldn't control her expression. She was silent for a moment. I've heard of him. Elder Wanzheng asked again. Did Rongxiu tell you? Chu Liyue's eyes flashed and nodded. Sigh. I knew it. Elder Wanzheng suddenly let out a long sigh, as if he had already expected this to happen. He has a deep grudge with Jun Juqing. You're so close to Rongxiu, so it's normal that you've heard of his name. Chu Liyue's brows furrowed slightly. At first, she thought that it was Rongxiu, because she had pushed the blame on Rong. But now, it seemed, She didn't say anything. In Elder Wanzheng's eyes, it was a silent agreement. Actually, Jun Juqing was a good seedling, but unfortunately, he has a gloomy mind and an extreme temper. When he encounters some things, his reaction will often lead things to develop in an uncontrollable direction. But this kind of evaluation was only known among the elders. It wasn't appropriate to say it to a student. But you don't have to care too much about that. Just do your own thing. The feeling of being ruthlessly crushed on the chessboard was too painful. This was enough for her to resist the urge to pinch his little face, and not even a trace of it remained. Where did he go? Why did he take so long? Chu Liyue looked at him curiously. This matter should be confidential. How do you know so much about it? He's not in the academy. Dugu Mabao was a man of few words. He only gave half an answer and turned a deaf ear to Chu Liyue's other questions. You broke through to level 8. Hearing him change the topic abruptly, Chu Liyue had the urge to pinch his little chubby face again. However, her remaining rationality made her hold back. If Dugu Mabao did not want to talk about it, it would be futile to ask him. Moreover, it might even accumulate more disdain. I broke through a few days after I entered the Beast Park. Chu Liyue walked over and sat opposite Dugu Mabao. Dugu Mabao stared at her. I'll fight with you. Wonderful book house. Chapter 1285. What? Chu Liyue's eyes widened slightly, almost suspecting that she had heard wrongly. You want to fight me? Chu Liyue pointed at her nose and asked in disbelief. Dugu Mabao frowned. Why, you don't want to? That's not it. Chu Luiyue quickly denied. What a joke. It was difficult for ordinary people to meet a powerhouse of this level, and it was extremely rare to be able to fight with him and get some pointers. No matter how depressed she was, she wouldn't say, I don't want to. I'm just a little surprised. After all, she had known Dugu Mabao for so long, other than playing chess, she had never really fought with him. Even when he trained her as a warrior, he only threw out a few puppets and never fought personally. Hence, Chu Luiyue was still very surprised when she heard him say this out of the blue. Although you're still a long way from becoming a god-level powerhouse, you're already a rank 8 warrior after all. It won't be that easy to fall apart in a fight. Dugu Mabao commented very calmly. Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched slightly. What are you saying? What do you mean it won't be that easy to fall apart? Is this the only effect I have after working so hard to break through to rank 8? Dugu Mabao glanced at her. Chu Luiyue said solemnly, please advise me. The location of the two's battle was still in the room. Chu Luiyue looked at the expensive furniture around her and hesitated. Big Bao, are we really not going out to fight? This place is so small, we can't use our full strength, right? And if we destroy these furniture, it won't be good. There's no need for that. Dugu Mabao said lightly. Chu Luiyue choked. This was the most disdainful and contemptuous sentence she had ever heard in her life. She felt that she was usually good with words, but every time she met Dugu Mabao, she would always lose without any suspense. However, she couldn't think of any rebuttal. Who asked the other party to crush him in all aspects? She took a deep breath, and the expression in her eyes became much more serious. She slightly crossed her legs, and the muscles all over her body tightened. The origin power in her dantian also began to circulate rapidly. In just a split second, she had completely entered her battle mode. A faint look of satisfaction flashed across Dugu Mabao's eyes and disappeared in an instant. Looks like I have not wasted my 1 month in the Beast Park. Chu Luiyue's combat strength was not weak, but it was more or less limited. After breaking through to the 8th rank, she persisted in her peak state and fought with many mythological beasts for a month. She had almost completely improved her abilities in all aspects. Even though her level hadn't changed, her observation skills, sensitivity, and other aspects had all increased by more than a little. This was especially important in a battle between experts. He always had a cold expression on his face, and even Chu Luiyue had barely seen him smile. Thus, she couldn't help but be dazed when she suddenly saw it. In the next moment, she finally could not help but take a few steps forward and pinched Dugu Mabao's face. Dabao, you are so cute. 3 seconds later, Dugu Mabao walked out with a dark expression. Bang! The door was closed. In the room, Chu Luiyue looked at the huge Xian formation in front of her and began to regret. Dabao, I was wrong. I won't do it again. Dugu Mabao said coldly. If you can't solve it, don't come out. After saying that, his figure flashed and disappeared. Chu Luiyue, who was left in the room, began to study the chessboard with a sorrowful expression. 15 minutes later. Dugu Mabao, this is not a level 9 Xian formation. Come back. However, Dugu Mabao had already disappeared without a trace. Chu Luiyue could only continue to study the chessboard obediently. Sigh. She suddenly wanted to go back to the Beast Park. At least she would not be bullied so ruthlessly there. Chu Luiyue sat in the room for a few hours. When it was close to evening, her eyes finally lit up. Here. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1286. She raised her hand, and her slender and fair fingers danced lightly. A few rays of light flew out, and intertwined in midair to form a small Xian formation. Then, she carefully placed it on a certain spot on the large Xian formation in front of her. Soon, the surrounding rays of light surged over and merged with the small Xian formation. Chu Luiyue was delighted. This was a sign that the formation was about to be cracked. However, before her smile could be completely revealed, she saw the rays of light on the large Xian formation continue to surge, and quickly drowned her small Xian formation. Chu Luiyue sighed in disappointment. This method of cracking the Xian formation was correct, but unfortunately, her current strength was too weak to contend against such a Xian formation. When her small Xian formation was completely swallowed, a silver light flashed before her eyes, and the large Xian formation quietly dissipated. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. Looks like Debao doesn't want to use a Xian formation to make things difficult for me. I'll give you 3 months to completely crack this Xian formation. When the time comes, I'll review it. Dugu Mabao's voice suddenly rang in her ears. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she looked outside the door. It was silent outside, as if no one had been here. She rubbed her brows. 3 months, she really didn't know where Debao's confidence in her came from, but fortunately, she had basically memorized the Xian formation in her mind, and she could study it when she had time. She glanced at the sky, got up, and walked over to open the door. As she expected, the door that was sealed just now had quietly opened. Chu Luiyue thought for a while, walked out, and headed in the direction of Medicine Wind Valley. It was already evening. When Chu Luiyue arrived at Medicine Wind Valley, there weren't many people here. She saw Elder Meng Yi, who was still lying on the small broken wooden bed in the middle. He seemed to be sleeping with his head facing the sky. Occasionally, students would bring herbs over to settle accounts. After the previous incident, Chu Luiyue wouldn't really think that he was sleeping. The entire Medicine Wind Valley had always been under his control. Chu Luiyue didn't disturb him, and flew down to look for the herbs she needed. Chu Yu. Chu Luiyue had just stood there when he heard a surprised voice coming from the side. She looked back and laughed as well. Senior brother Zhong Sun, why are you here as well? Zhong Sun walked over and sized up Chu Luiyue a few times, his eyes filled with unconcealable curiosity. I should be the one asking you that. You haven't come out for a month. I haven't seen you for a while. Is it because senior brother Rongxiu has been giving you special guidance? Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed, then he smiled and said, yes. It seemed like these people didn't know that Rongxiu wasn't in the academy. No wonder. Zhong Sun looked at Chu Luiyue with admiration and envy. Senior brother Rongxiu is ranked second on the Ascension rankings. With his guidance, I'll surely benefit greatly, right? Of course, Chu Yu, you're very outstanding as well. You've ascended the Ascension rankings after coming to the academy for 2 months. It's a pity that this month's assessment just ended and you didn't come. Otherwise, your ranking would definitely continue to rise, right? Only then did Chu Luiyue remember that she had been in the Beast Park for a month and happened to miss the assessment at the beginning of this month. She smiled and shook her head. Senior brother Zhong Sun, you flatter me. She thought for a moment and said, for example, that Lin Qifei ascended the Ascension rankings earlier than me. Zhong Sun clicked his tongue. That's true. At the beginning of this month's assessment, he's already ranked 89th on the Ascension rankings. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Oh. So fast. Actually, this isn't his true strength yet. Zhong Sun looked around and lowered his voice. You haven't come out for a while, so it's normal that you don't know about this. Some time ago, during the Xian Masters joint class, Lin Qifei defeated Jiang Jiwan on the spot. Chu Luiyue's eyes flickered slightly. Jiang Jiwan isn't weak. To be able to defeat her, one can imagine how strong Lin Qifei is. Although that wasn't a real duel and was just a competition on the chessboard, it was enough to prove how outstanding Lin Qifei is. As Zhong Sun spoke, he was rather emotional. I heard that he's only in his early 20s and looks gentle and delicate. I didn't expect him to hide his strength so well. The Xian masters all said that if he used his full strength, his ranking would be at least 30 places higher than his current ranking. But for some reason, he doesn't seem to be very interested in this. On the day of the assessment at the beginning of the month, he seemed to be just casually dealing with it. Not only Zhong Sun, but many people also didn't know what Lin Qifei was thinking. In the academy, everyone wanted to ascend the ascension rankings. The higher the ranking, the more glory they would receive. Many people couldn't ascend the rankings even once until they left the academy, and it was a pity. However, this Lin Qifei didn't care much about this. However, this doesn't affect everyone's high opinion of him. Many people also said that he would be the most outstanding dark horse in the next few years. At this point, Zhong Sun couldn't help but glance at Chu Luiyue. Of course, I'm talking about the Xian masters. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh when she saw how careful he was. Senior brother Zhong Sun, if you have anything to say, just say it. Don't worry about what I think. You really don't mind? Zhong Sun asked in surprise. A month or two ago, especially after Chu Yu secretly left the academy and returned safely after helping senior brother Rong Xiu, most people in the academy had already tacitly agreed that he was the most outstanding among the new students. But now, the direction of the wind had already changed. More people were leaning towards Lin Qifei. No cultivator would really be indifferent in the face of such a change, right? I really don't mind. Chu Luiyue held back her laughter and said seriously. She knew Lin Qifei's talent and strength the best. Otherwise, she wouldn't have chosen to join forces with him back then. But now, why did it seem like everyone was secretly comparing the two of them? Recalling the scene of her fight with Du Mobao, Chu Luiyue couldn't help but sigh in her heart. With such a top expert by her side, how could she have the mood to care if Lin Qifei was stronger than her? Seeing that Chu Luiyue really didn't seem to mind, Zhong Sun was relieved. That's good, that's good. In any case, you're now cultivating with Elder Wan Zhang and senior brother Rong Xiu. Your future will definitely be limitless. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and asked. You just said. Jiang Jiwan lost to Lin Qifei. What's going on? I remember that her strength is not bad. She's not bad, but she seemed to be in a bad state that day. Zhong Sun said hesitantly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said those words. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. What words? Zhong Sun shook his head. It's just that she's still brooding over the position of Yuntian Tower's princess consort. In short, it's not anything good. After the competition, she asked for leave and returned to the Immortal Water Tomb. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1287. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. Based on her understanding, most of the people in the academy had a good attitude towards Jiang Jiwan. On one hand, she came from a good family, and on the other hand, she was talented and strong. On the other hand, she was born beautiful and had always been gentle, lively, and elegant in front of others, so it was easy for people to like her. But now, from Zhong Sun's tone, it seemed that he looked down on Jiang Jiwan. It seemed that Jiang Jiwan really had a serious slip of the tongue that day. As if he saw Chu Luiyue's doubts, Zhong Sun simply repeated what happened that day. It's like this. Previously, everyone thought that she was the pitiful and innocent one who was being bullied, but after Lin Qifei stood up that day, everyone understood that the truth was not as she had preached. She was clearly inferior to others, but she still wanted to slander them. People who can do such things are not good people. Zhong Sun pursed his lips, and a trace of annoyance flashed across his face. There were many students present that day, and many of them heard what she said. After that, her series of actions were really not presentable. I really didn't expect her to be like this. Now that I think about it, Senior Rongxiu has been keeping a respectful distance from her from the start. He must have seen through her a long time ago, right? Chu Luiyue did not say anything. Actually, Jiang Jiwan's control of her emotions had always been good, but when a person pretended for a long time, there would be a time when they would be exposed. No one knew what had happened to provoke her to this extent. From then on, her image in the hearts of the people in the academy had completely collapsed. Coupled with the fact that she had lost to Lin Qifei, it was like an army collapsing. In Lingxiao College, you could be aloof, you could be arrogant, you could be arrogant. But the premise was that you had to be strong enough. Without strength as a cornerstone, you would not be able to stand firm. I think she won't be coming back anytime soon. Chu Luiyue fell into deep thought. Obviously, Jiang Ziyuan was still brooding over the fact that Lin Mingya had become the princess. Otherwise, she would not have said those words on impulse until now. If she returned to the immortal water mausoleum. Chu Yu. What are you thinking? Seeing that Chu Luiyue did not react for a long time, Zhong Sun reached out his hand and waved it in front of her eyes. Chu Luiyue came back to his senses and smiled. It's nothing. I just feel that these things. Forget it. Anyway, this has nothing to do with us. We'll just be spectators. Senior Martial Brother Zhong Sun, if there's nothing else, I'll go pick some herbs first. Zhong Sun hurriedly said, You go. I've basically finished harvesting, so I won't delay you any further. After he finished speaking, he turned around and took 2 more stalks of medicinal herbs and quickly left. Chu Luiyue also retracted his gaze and began to look for the herbs he needed. The sky gradually darkened, and almost all the people in the Medicine Wind Valley had left. Chu Luiyue walked among the knee-high amethyst bone flowers and carefully selected them. Kid, you're not done yet. Elder Mengyi finally opened one of his eyes and asked lazily. Chu Luiyue was startled. She straightened her body and turned around. Only then did she realize that she was the only student left. She scratched her head in embarrassment. Elder, I really cupped my fists. This student was negligent and did not pay attention to the time. This student will pack up and leave now. Elder Mengyi suddenly sat up, picked up his palm leaf fan and scratched his bare feet. He laughed, hee, kid, do you know how many medicinal herbs you've taken away since you came in? This old man remembers that you've only been in the academy for 3 months. If you can't pay the points later, this old man won't let you leave so easily. So he was worried about this. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, Thank you for your concern, Elder. However, my master said that I can take any medicinal herbs in the Medicine Wind Valley during this period of time and put them under his name. Oh. This time, Elder Mengyi finally opened both of his eyes. He stared at Chu Luiyue from head to toe for a while and asked suspiciously, That old man really said that? Yes. How would this student dare to lie about this kind of thing? This old man, could it be that he has changed his personality? Elder Mengyi couldn't help but murmur in a low voice. That Wanzheng was old-fashioned and strict. How could he do such a thing? But Chu Yu, as a freshman, did not seem to dare to lie about this kind of thing. After all, whether it was true or not, he would know by asking Wanzheng. Then this must be true. Elder Mengyi thought for a while and stroked his beard. In that case, this old man is relieved. If you want anything else, just take it as soon as possible. After he said that, Chu Luiyue was a little embarrassed to continue. She hurriedly said, "This student has taken enough today. Moreover, it's already very late. I won't disturb you anymore." With that, she walked over and asked Elder Mengyi to count. Elder Mengyi picked up his green jade token and wrote a number on it. "Enough. This old man knows very well what you took. There's no need to count anymore. This account. This old man will send it to him tomorrow, Elder." Chu Luyue suddenly interrupted him. "This student has a presumptuous request. I hope you can agree to it." Elder Mengyi lifted his eyelids and looked at her. "What's the matter?" Chu Luyue coughed. Under Elder Mengyi's gaze, which seemed to see through everything, her face turned red and she felt a little embarrassed. This bill, can you wait for a month before sending it to my master? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.